All right, we shall start the meeting. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council on the 13th of April 2021, opening at 7 p.m. We are still seated according to COVID restrictions in the chamber, but you are welcome to join us in the chamber foyer, and it is pleasing to see a large number of residents here tonight to listen and provide deputations. Welcome too to those who are watching from home. For those here in attendance, please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. I also take this time to acknowledge our respect and give thanks for the life of service of the Queen's Consort, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and formally extend our sympathies to the Queen and to his family and friends across the Commonwealth. Finally, we seek understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. In the case of an emergency, an alarm will sound, and then please follow the directions of the staff. I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the council's website, and a copy of the agenda is available by downloading from this website. Members, please raise your hand to indicate when you wish to speak, and use your microphones when speaking. I ask everyone here to turn off your mobile phones or place them on silent during the meeting. A reminder about 3 minutes speaking time and only one question at a time. To everyone present in the chamber and in the foyer, please be respectful of each other and opinions during these debates and not interrupt the person debating or talk whilst they are speaking. It is important that all views of the elected members are heard before any decisions are made. Thank you. We have one apology, and that is from Councillor Turnbull. We have a leave of absence application from Councillor Henschke. I move that way. You move, thank you, Councillor Davis. Seconded by Councillor Hubel. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Declaration. Is there anyone who wishes to declare an item of interest? No? Then we shall move to the next one. Confirmation of minutes. I seek a mover. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Seconded, Councillor Piggott. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We have no adjourned business. I'm not aware of anyone for public question time. No one has come to me. We do have 6 deputations tonight, and I've put them in the order of the 2 Dulwich ones first, followed by the 4 that came in their order in relation to the pump track. So our first deputy is Mr. Damien Seidel in relation to the Dulwich Community Centre. And I have spoken to him, to all of the deputies already, and told them about their 5 minutes and a warning bell at 4, and also about staying and answering any questions when you're finished. So, Damien, I'll just ask you to state your name and your suburb where you live. Thank you.
My name's Damien Seidel. I'm a ratepayer at Beulah Park. I currently reside in Norwood. Okay, can I speak now? Look, thank you very much for all your time. I've been running a non-profit community-based karate classes at Dulwich community for the last 13 years. And I'd like to talk to the uniqueness of the facility and the benefit it gives the community. In the past 13 years, I've been able to provide at-cost training for hundreds of people from the ages of 5 to 65 years of age. That's my current age groups. This wouldn't have been possible without the Dulwich Community Centre. I use the centre up to 3 times a week, plus ad hoc hire. for special events, including hosting interstate and Japanese instructors that come to Australia to train. And recently I hosted a Zoom seminar for women-only training where my female members got to train with leading practitioners across the world, including Japan, Greece, England and South Africa. So it was a really, really special things that I can provide to our female members. Our current membership's around 60 students, consisting about 50% females, which is actually quite unique for a karate club. I think I've got critical mass there and they all support each other, which is fantastic. And what makes our club unique is that the families can actually train together. So I hold classes together with adults and children, which a lot of families appreciate. And it's a unique opportunity for kids that feel excluded or not confident about team sports. So I fill a niche with children that need their confidence built. And the feedback I get from parents is truly incredible and is why I volunteer my time and effort to the community for the length of time I have. The actual facility itself, the floor and space is what makes it unique. The sprung wooden floors is very important for safety for training in martial arts. The ability to provide the community discount is key to me to provide that at-cost training. On Friday nights, I actually don't charge students at all. And a lot of the events, I don't charge at all. If I've got good numbers, I'll put that money straight back into the club. I don't pull any income out of the event. If I was to lose the facility, I'd have to look elsewhere, and it'll be a loss to the area. Most of my members are all local because it's what's convenient. You know, parents drop kids off while they do shopping, or they come and train. And the only other facilities that are available to hire, typically with school halls, but school halls aren't available on weekends because they're using them for their weekend sport. So, you know, that weekend access is actually something which is quite unique with the Dulwich Community Centre. You know, that's probably my main points. I suppose being there for 13 years, I've probably seen the underinvestment firsthand in the facility. It's been there as is for as long as I've been there. And, you know, I feel that we owe, as ratepayers, the community to bring it to standard and not punish the community for our lack of investment in the past. So if we've not put in the effort to keep it up to standard, you know, I think it's up to us to bring it back. I noted the proposal has a large sum of money allocated to that. I suppose not across that proposal, but, you know, in reality, I'm sure there's lots of varying options to keep the centre, and that would be my recommendation as well. That's all really I had to say. If there's any questions, yeah.
Thank you, Damien. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. Your description there of parents dropping off children and they go shopping and so forth. So parking, traffic, there was a community survey. There were some concerns from some residents in the street about people parking in front of their driveways, etc. But yeah. What are your 13 years? You're familiar, aren't you? When there's an event on, the parking directly in front of it is full, but I've never had any issues parking my own car in front of the community. I haven't had to park streets away or anything silly like that. It's not really an issue from what I've seen. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Cheers.
Do you find that your capacity to run your club is limited because you cannot do after hours?
Well, I run it. I run it just as a hobby, right? So I have a real job. So yeah, my capacity is probably my own capacity. So I have to run it after hours, and that's when families are available. So yeah, either early evenings or the weekends is where I concentrate, where I can train and teach. Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Cornish.
Thanks again for coming in.
That's right.
Just a few questions from your deputation tonight. First one, do you use the back room or the front room for your classes?
I use actually a mixture, actually. So the back room predominantly, because it's the biggest space.
Yep.
And if I've got a smaller group of people on Friday nights, I typically use the front room. It's because it's got the mirrors there, which are quite really useful for self-correction and the like. So yeah.
Yep. If I can, a second question. Thanks. You brought up the fact of cost, and you run it at cost, a limited cost, and it just sort of raised a question with me. Obviously, when things get renovated, even when you're leasing out houses or commercial premises, the lease rates go up significantly as well, because you've got a brand new facility, and whoever the owner is has to claw back some of that money. I suppose, not wanting to put you in a difficult situation, but I suppose the price point of that sort of community centre and what you're looking to provide, it's of a certain market, I suppose. So would that be a concern for many of the groups, you think, there, in terms of if the prices were to go up after a renovation?
It was something I'd have to definitely look at. I currently also rent St Peter's Girls Gymnasium, and they actually give that to me cheaper than the Dulwich Community Centre, so they do a bit of community stuff. They're about to renovate their school gym, so I'm in a bit of bind there as well, to be honest. But look, if the rents went up, and of course if Dulwich Community Centre was closed, I'd have to up my rates, or probably do less sponsorship as I do for seminars and tournaments and that sort of stuff, which I usually help subsidise parents. So it would just be a balancing act. Yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for coming in this evening. We've heard quite a lot about this sprung wooden floor.
Yeah.
I guess there's been a number of options that have been put forward as part of the report. Do you see that there would be a benefit in renovating the current facility, or do you think that we could make the facility even better if we included a new spring floor in a newer facility?
Yeah, look, I'm quite simple. I use the facility all the time. Obviously the bathrooms need fixing, but in terms of the structure and the floor, there's a couple of leaks and a couple of spots in the roof. But that's it. I think it's not in bad shape. I saw the 1.7 mil. I thought, wow, that's going to give me something pretty special. But yeah, no, I just need the current facility, obviously brought up to code potentially with bathrooms. So yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask a question, I should say? Look, that's all. Thank you very much. Damien, thank you for coming in and doing a deputation to us.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next person is also in relation to Dulwich Community Centre, and that is Adela Alfonsi, and she is speaking on behalf of the flamenco dance arete that occupies the space. Thank you, Adela. You actually have a place to sit down, so one of our elected members is not here tonight, so I'll let you start when you are ready, and I'll turn my mic off. Just state your name and what suburb you live in. Okay.
My name is Adela Alfonsi, and I reside in Millswood. I'll proceed then. My name is Adela Alfonsi, and I am a resident of Unley Council. I am reading this representation to Burnside Council on behalf of Areti Boyadzi, who is director of the Flamenco Dance School Flamenco Areti and user of the Dulwich Community Centre. She's a resident and ratepayer in the Burnside Council area and is unfortunately unable to speak for herself at this meeting, as the AGM of the Friends of the Australian Ballet is being held at the same time, and Areti has been nominated as Vice President. I am one of her dance students. I have also known her since before she established her dance school, as we began studying flamenco together at around the same time. So in her words, I have been a resident and ratepayer of the Burnside Council for the past 21 years. During this time, I have also run most of my dance school activities from the Burnside Council area. I have been the director of Flamenco Areti since 1999, and over time, it has become Adelaide's premier flamenco dance school. I have also taught the Spanish dance program to senior dance students of the Australian Ballet School for the last 12 years, beginning under the directorship of Marilyn Rowe, OBE, now under the current director, Lisa Pavan. In 2004, Lisa Pavan added the Areti Boyadzi Award for Excellence in Spanish Dance to the list of classical and contemporary dance awards. I am recognised as one of Australia's finest flamenco dancers, having produced numerous flamenco productions with guest artists from Spain and Australia. I have hosted numerous masterclasses and workshops with Spanish artists, including dancers from the Ballet Nacional de España, the Spanish National Ballet, and many other internationally renowned flamenco dancers. I am also a grant recipient from the Spanish government's Ministry of Culture via the Australian National University. Recent highlights of my professional work include choreographing for the Australian Ballet School in 2018, choreographing the Spanish dance pieces for South Australia Opera's La Vida Breve in 2017, performing at the Adelaide International Guitar Festival in 2016 with guest artists from Spain, opening the International Guitar Festival at the Adelaide Festival Theatre in 2014 with another supporting special guest from Spain. In 2013, shortlisted for the Adelaide Critics Circle Award in Professional Theatre. In my 22 years as a professional dancer and choreographer, the biggest challenge has been finding suitable studio and practice space. In terms of being able to offer suitable conditions for classes, there are always issues of suitable time slots, location, parking, size of space, cost of the space, availability of suitable mirrors, and in particular, finding a suitable dance surface has also proven to be a huge challenge. Over the years, we have used the Lion Arts Centre, Nexus, Oz Dancers Studio, Norwood Ballet Centre, Barbie Jane Studio, and the Odeon Theatre Studio. The Odeon has been our longest hire until the Australian Dance Theatre took over the venue 3 years ago. Since 2017, we have been hiring the Dulwich Community Centre, and the floor there has by far been the best. The wooden floor has an excellent acoustic quality and is perfectly sprung to prevent injury and jarring to the body. None of the previous venues provided such a satisfying and rewarding surface to dance on due to them being covered in target. On account of the splendid nature of that floor and certain other minimum amenities such as mirrors, we have enjoyed the use of the Dulwich Community Centre even while it has presented some drawbacks, such as the generally poor presentation of the toilet facilities and kitchen facilities. To find an alternative within the area with the conditions flamenco dancer Reti would need would be extremely difficult. We strongly believe that it would be a travesty for this floor not to be retained. The possibility of a rebuild with a cement floor would not be an option at all for our group, nor indeed any other dance, fitness, martial arts group. A hard cement floor is dangerous, joint jarring, and provides no give, let alone any warm rhythmic sounds that a wooden floor provides, even if it were covered in parquetry. A concrete surface covered in a rubber-like material would provide far too much grip and no sound. Carpet is similarly unsuitable and produces a dust factor. I would also like to note that over the years, the school has trained a great many young women in, at the very least, the basics of flamenco dance. Some have been at the school since it was established and continue to attend classes and perform with the school. The diversity of attendees has also been considerable. They are overwhelmingly young women from all cultural backgrounds, including Indigenous Australians. We strongly urge the Burnside Council to appreciate the unique resource it has in the Dulwich Community Centre and renovate and upgrade the facility, and in doing so, preserve the wooden floor. Thank you for your attention.
Right on time. I think you definitely need a clap for that. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you for coming in, number one. Number two, seriously, thank you for representing someone who can't be here tonight. That's a really big,
It's
as
tough.
a student, that's a big tough ask. So I really want to appreciate you for doing that on behalf of someone else. Well, I don't know if it's a question, but I've always been on the assumption that the floors actually weren't sprung, but it's perfect for dancing, is what you're saying.
In all sincerity, as a person who uses that floor, and in all sincerity, I'm not kidding, I have often remarked during the class at what an amazing floor it is, because I have actually been on all those other surfaces and there's just nothing comparative to it. I don't know if it's sprung or isn't sprung. One other thing that I would note about that floor though, I did notice some commentary about redoing the floor or something. Flamenco dance shoes, in order to make the sound, have clusters of nails. So you have a cluster of nails at the toe and you have nails embedded in the heel. And that's how you make all of those rhythms. So I'm kind of thinking, even if you redid the floor and put in a new floor, would you really want a bunch of people smashing up it?
A new floor.
Like the magic of that floor is the sound of obviously, and the fact that you can bash away at it and you never have a problem worrying about whether someone's going to come screaming at you because you're destroying the floor. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. So I suppose, you'd prefer the floors in the front and the back to actually remain the same, and basically a little bit of a tart-up, like a little bit of an upgrade is what you're looking for.
I think the upgrade obviously needs to be in the toilets and the kitchen. I mean, the place does come across as very run down. There's no question about that.
Thank you.
Councillor Henschke?
Oh, thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much. It's just a pleasure to hear you speak tonight about the amazing network of people associated with this dance, sport or culture. And it's very impressive. So you bring people to Adelaide, they would be walking around Dulwich, going to a cafe, don't have to use the toilets up there perhaps, but you know, this is why doing up the, your question, yes, thank you. I think we got it. I was following Peter Cornish's cue. We were just having this big chat. Thank you, Councillor Pickett. The question then, yeah, the toilets, the facilities, you couldn't really bring these international visitors to that site for meetings, conferences and, you know, and so forth. It's really you dance there and you meet elsewhere for meetings with international connections?
If she was going to do a masterclass,
Yes.
it would obviously have to be there. So
Right.
it's not a great impression, but that's what it is.
Right.
You'd have to have where else would you go?
Where else
I mean,
would you go?
yes, they would be there.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Right, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? All right, well, thank you very much, Adela.
Thank you
on
very
behalf
much.
of Areti, and good luck with your dance school. Thank you, and your own dancing.
Thank you.
Our next four deputies are all in relation to the pump track. So our first speaker is Rochelle Martin. And Rochelle has spoken before as a deputy, so I'm pretty sure you know about the 5 minutes and the 4 minutes and introducing yourself and where you live.
Yes,
just the suburb,
correct.
not full address. Thank you.
Rochelle Martin, and I reside in Wattle Park. Here we go. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council administration. I'm actually really excited to be here tonight. I'm not sure if all your deputations start off this way, but based on the success of the pump track trial, I am excited. For a quick refresh, Rochelle, co-founder of Skate the East, the local community group, currently at the helm of this ongoing request for a permanent skate park in Burnside. 12 months has flown by, and by now we have comprehensive data on the closest thing to a wheel park in Burnside, a pump track trial that has been hugely successful. We have all read the report by now, so I will highlight the overwhelming success. I'm positive it has exceeded all of your expectations based on the level of community participation. With over 550,000 laps completed by our residents, the report gives us the important statistics relating to each of the 4 locations it was trialled in. The amount of laps counted, the weekly average of laps, the elements that made some of those locations more successful than others, hard surfaces, length of track, accessibility, etc. The amount of positive feedback versus the minimal amount of complaints from people who actually engage with the facility rather than those who made assumptions from afar. Overall, the trial comprehensively demonstrated that the negative perceptions some people associate with wheel parks are unfounded. Years of requests, community consultation, reports and recommendations dating back to 2008 on the Burnside website have been glossed over. Up until November 2019, when 9 out of 12 of you voted in favour for committing to a pump track trial. The pump track trial has legitimately quantified the need for a skate park in our community. Had the results been different, tonight's meeting would be based on a different recommendation from council administration. I'm expecting to hear 1 or 2 comments. The pump track is enough, but it's not. It doesn't cater as well as a skate park does for older youth. It doesn't challenge those who have mastered competent skills on bikes, scooters and skateboards, and it doesn't provide a proper platform for the numerous amount of tricks and skills that a skate park does. It actually doesn't cater for school holiday programs that could be provided for the kids who want to learn how to scoot and skateboard. In saying that, I am definitely in support of the pump track still being on rotation throughout our community. There is no benefit gained from the pump track being locked up in a storage facility, and approving the purchase of additional elements will make it even better than it was. The locations you confirmed tonight will really come alive when the pump track is there. However, the main focus tonight for me and the community I speak on behalf of is to see the approval for a feasibility study to be completed to determine the suitability for a permanent skate park in Burnside. The Council Administration report recognises that opportunities for a regional skate park with neighbouring councils have at the current time been exhausted, with no suitable location or partnership currently available. Further to this decision to approve a feasibility study, I have always been of the opinion that a concept design has been the vital ingredient missing from this community discussion process. Residents are unaware of how incredible a skate park facility incorporated as part of a surrounding recreational facility can actually be. If you can consider to include a concept design along with a feasibility study, I believe we'll be on track for an honest, genuine discussion regarding a permanent location and design for our skate park. Newland Park was the standout location for this trial. It really emphasised how including a place for wheels can enhance our outdoor facilities, giving even more reason for the community to come together. I do hope you listen to the experiences of the other supporters giving a deputation tonight, being avid users of this trial and also important constituents of the Burnside community. Their experiences provide you with a key insight into this topic. Thank you for listening.
Right, does anyone wish to ask Rochelle a question? Councillor Piggott.
Thanks, Rochelle, and congratulations on maintaining your strength in this argument. One of the questions I need answered, I feel, is how the pump track, which has clearly been a success, but is aimed at much smaller children, generally, I think, probably there with their parents. How does that, I guess, get rid of the concerns that are actually based not on that group, but more on an older group that a skate park is generally associated with? So I'm keen to see the link that you see from what is a pretty young children type activity to the full skate park that presumably will cater up to sort of, 20-year-olds, perhaps further.
Sure. I was at the skate park, at the pump track trial a lot, and there were not just young kids there, there were a lot of teenagers there. I think the main point of this is that you asked for we needed data for you to consider this even further. A pump track trial was the only way we're going to get to this point to have this conversation. I think there's been numerous opportunities for you to make a call on a skate park prior to this. I think now with these results, we need to be heard. The kids that use the pump track, I sort of mentioned at a point, are going to grow out of that. They still need a place to go. They still deserve a community facility. I don't think age matters in this instance.
Councillor Davis and then Councillor...
Rochelle, how old are your kids? And my understanding is they're about to go from that kind of pump, like they'd be happy with a pump track, but also starting to go into a skate park. Mm-hmm. Kind of what age would you feel comfortable letting them go on their own unsupervised into a skate park facility, for example, that was close to them?
Sure. They're currently 8 and 9. I'd like to think that to give them the independence probably by about the age of 10, they'd be able to ride down, take their bike or their scooter and go to somewhere local and close by. The benefit and the community atmosphere at Newland was next level. There was always someone that you knew there. There was always parents around. There were older kids. People looked out for everyone. It was really a conducive and confident place to let your kids go, so I wouldn't have any dramas with that. It's better than them riding around the back streets.
Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for coming along tonight, Michelle.
Okay.
I'm interested in, we've got to start looking at designs and sizes and all of those sort of things, as well as what's been mentioned with catering for age groups. How do you feel that the other skate parks in the area, like Ridge Park and Adelaide City Council, have coped and dealt with that?
To be honest, I don't really go to either of them anymore. We probably spend most of our time at Mulberry or Churchill Road, the Prospect Skate Park. They're the newest facilities. They're clean, they're upgraded new facilities for the kids to go to. Ridge Park is just a really big bowl that I don't think actually allows for multiple use. And your other question in regards to... it's just not enough. It's just, it's small. It's kind of, it's not a dynamic space. It's old. It's not where it could be, that's for sure.
Councillor Davis?
Newland had, in terms of track length done on it, was 4 times more successful than the next option. What do you think made Newland? And when I went there was parents everywhere and there's kids everywhere. What do you think made Newland different from the other locations?
There was definitely physical attributes, so the fact it was on a hard surface and not on grass and on dirt. It was the length of the track, but I think the biggest standout was the fact that because it was one essentially round track that the kids would go round on, it actually provided, being on the tennis courts or having a larger surface area, allowed younger kids to come off and go around and allowed the big kids to go on, and there was this real mateship between how it was used. There was no one ever pushing a scooter off or a skateboard off for a BMX bike to get on. It was actually, it was really well used by, I suppose, all ages and all wheel sports, I suppose.
So anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Henschke?
Thank you, Rochelle. I've got a question about types of skate parks. And do you see that Burnside needs a skate park which differentiates itself from every other skate park in the metropolitan area?
What do you mean by differentiate?
Is it going to be a skate park, a type of skate park, a style of skate park that has to be quite different? Or can it be the same as, say, the one in Churchill Road?
I would love to get into concept design and really, I'd like to make it our own. I'd love to have a lot of trees, outdoor area, barbecues, like a real space that incorporates everyone to sort of be there. You can go to a skate park and spend 4 hours of your afternoon and the kids have not even come to see you kind of once. But in that sense that you can just spend hours there. So I take my book, my laptop, you can meet friends, that sort of thing. So I'd like to think, considering we've never had one and we're starting with a clean slate, it would be amazing to put our skate park up there in terms of how awesome it really could be.
Any further questions? Right, otherwise thank you very much, Rochelle, for coming in, and we will move to our next deputation, which I believe is from 2 young people who are definitely users of the pump track and other skate parks, and they are Ryan Edwards and Sienna Winterford. I just want to say I think you're wonderfully brave young people, and I know obviously you're very enthusiastic about what you're about to speak about, but I commend you for coming in. It's pretty daunting sitting in front of a bunch of old people around the table. Sorry, compared to them, we are all old people. So please go ahead and I've talked to you about the time limit, okay?
Good evening. The pump track trial at Newland was a very good place for us to catch up with our friends and family.
Just a minute, Ryan. Could you just turn the microphone while you're talking towards you? That's right, that's better. Otherwise people at home won't hear you, okay?
Good evening. The pump track trial at Newland was a very good place for us to catch up with our friends and family. Every morning, me and my neighbour would go to the skate park with our bikes. As we lived so close to the tennis court that we went at least 3 times each day it was there. The pump track attracted many different age groups and was very well presented. The pump track was a massive hit with my friends and neighbours, and it got really, really busy every day. There were more than 300,000 laps on the skate park over a period of 3 months. As fun as it was, I would really like to have a permanent skate park, as it would be even more fun to ride and be more challenging for my skills. I know so many people who love being outdoors and will love a local permanent skate park. My parents let me ride by myself and with my friends so we can all catch up and spend our afternoons riding at the pump track. This was more fun than just riding around the block. If we had a permanent skate park every day, life would be heaps better for everyone who loves to be outdoors. Skate park will be awesome. Can you please make this happen?
Well done. Sienna, when you would like to speak, you've got the microphone pointed to you now.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors and Council Administration. My name is Sienna Winterford. I'm 10 years old and I live in Gordon Street, Arundel, and I go to Burnside Primary School. I am also an avid user of the local tennis courts, playgrounds and ovals in my local area. This evening, I'll be talking to you about the pump track, why I think it's a great idea and is needed in the Burnside Council area. I particularly enjoyed the pump track when it was at Newland Park Tennis Courts, as it was just around the corner from my house. Firstly, I feel that the pump track provides a safe and fun environment because it's located away from traffic and cars. Before the pump track, I used to ride my skateboard on the local roads, trying to avoid cars and traffic. There was also a real community feel around the pump track because everyone was looking out for each other, especially the older kids looking out for the younger kids. There was a respect around the track that the little kids were always given the right of way, no matter how fast or skilled they were. The pump track also provided a safe environment with many parents attending and providing assistance if needed, looking out for their own and other children if they ever needed any help. There was a great community feel to the pump track as it became a meeting place for everyone who lived locally. The local pump track also provides a multi-purpose use track for the users who ride scooters, skateboards, roller skates, rollerblades and bikes. You can have fun on the pump track no matter what you ride. The pump track is a fantastic place to enjoy meeting your friends, making new friends and spending time with your community, and generally just having fun. I'm here to strongly advocate for a permanent pump track in the Burnside Council area. Thank you for listening and good evening.
Thank you very much. Now, is there anyone who would wish to ask a question of these young people? When you're 10 years old, anyone over 20 is old. Isn't that right, kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyone wish to ask? Councillor Davis.
I'm not old. My question's for Sienna. I might have missed it, but how many times would you use the pump track at Newland in a week?
I'd use it a lot. I reckon 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
I'd go there after school and after activities I had out of school.
Yep. And if you weren't going there, where would you be going? You said you rode on the streets. Where? How far would you go from your home?
I would go just like a block above and go just like ride my skateboard, and if a car was coming, just like go to the curb, and it wasn't much fun because I didn't get much riding experience.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So anyone else? Councillor Davey?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming along tonight, and it was a great presentation, and we'll certainly take on board your comments and your experiences. So thank you very much for letting us know.
Did you wish to speak, Councillor? I was wondering where the question is. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All right. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll thank very much both Ryan and Sienna for coming in and speaking to us. Now, our next deputy is Hannah Meltzer. Just turn that microphone towards yourself. Oh, that's all right, thank you. Mr. Spearman. You go ahead whenever you're ready, Hannah.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors and Council Administration. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Hannah Melzer and I am a 14-year-old female skateboarder who lives in Burnside and used the pump track facility regularly when it was at Newland Park. I attended the Newland Park Kindy, Burnside Primary School, and now I'm a student at Pembroke. I am a competitive rower but also love to ride my skateboard with my friends. The pump track at Newland was a great place to catch up with my friends and reconnect with other kids the same age in the area that I once went to kindy or Burnside Primary with. My mum loved it as I spent way less time on technology and out of the house. It gave me confidence to become more confident It gave me confidence to become more independent, and when the holidays came round, my friends and I ended up spending up to 7 hours a day, nearly every day at the pump track with our skateboards. It was an awesome place that brought the community together, and it was a safe place to be without any main roads nearby. I tried the Linden Park and Kensington tracks, but found it wasn't as fun on grass and not as it wasn't on a hard surface, and the grass made it more difficult to get on and off the track. I also didn't feel safe or confident when the track was near a main road, the parade. Although the pump track was great, after mastering the track, which we ended up doing time trials on, we needed to look for surrounding steps and walking tracks to continue to challenge our skills. A permanent skate park facility which includes a pump track would be a perfect way to cater for all ages and abilities. I have made a video to show our experiences, and you can watch it on the Skate the East website. I really hope you make a decision tonight to move forward with a permanent location for a skate park in Burnside. My friends and I would love to see it at Newland Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Again, you're a very brave young lady for coming along and speaking to us. Maybe the gap between 14 and 20 is not quite as big as 10. However, is there anyone who wishes to ask a question, please? Councillor Davis.
I reaffirm how young I am. If you went on the skate park at Newland or on that pump track, and if you didn't have a pump track facility or a permanent skate park, where would you go to practice skateboarding? Or?
Well, my friends and I just went around the block or just up and down my driveway because my driveway is kind of longer.
Okay, cool.
Councillor Lemon.
Hi Hannah, thank you for coming in. Have you tried other skate parks around the place, in the metropolitan area, so I mean in Adelaide or other suburbs? Are you interested in those at all?
I would love to try, but because of other things that's been happening throughout the time from the skate park or the pump track and now, I haven't really been able to try any of them, but I would love to have a go at many of them around.
Right, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? All right, well, thank you very much, Hannah, for coming in and speaking to us all tonight. Now, our last deputy is Mr. Justin Chadwick. Thank you, Justin. 5 minutes and a warning bell at 4 minutes.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think we need that time. Thank you very much for allowing me for this deputation this evening. My name is Justin Chadwick. I'm a ratepayer and resident of Kensington Park. I'm also a volunteer at Burnside Council, and I am on the Heritage Reference Group for the last 12 months. I'd like to speak to you tonight about the proposal which is in tonight's papers for the pump track trial and extension, as well as the possibility of a permanent skate park. I'd like to commend the council initially on its implementation of the pump track. I think it's a great idea. It's clearly been a success, and its ongoing use, I think, would be a benefit for young members of Burnside Council. Being moved around the council area, I think, has been obviously clearly beneficial. Newland Park has been the highlight and has proved that it has been a worthy investment on the council's behalf. What I'd like to talk to you tonight really about is talking to the paper and the proposal of making a permanent skate park in Kensington Park Oval Reserve. I have serious reservations about that. I don't have reservations about the concept of a skate park at all. I think it's a good idea. Many councils around Adelaide suburbs have implemented good skate parks. They've been the ones which have been designed well, are well patronised, but with that in mind is an age differentiation between a pump track and a full-blown skate park. The proposed area at Kensington Park Oval is far too small for a proper skate park. If you do this, you do it right. Simple as that. Rochelle has made that very clear, that the popularity of a skate park will be oversubscribed, and that means it needs to cater for probably a range of age groups, and that requires space. The proposed site right now on the northern side of Kensington Oval is within 500 square metres. It would require the removal of existing public artwork, which would, I think that Burnside has a public art policy, but it would probably breach that if it did. And also possibly include removal of trees, paths, and also put pressure on existing facilities in there. My point here is that I think it's a good idea. However, before the council spends money on feasibility studies, then I suspect it probably would not be the best place to look at. The park is oversubscribed right now with sporting facilities, both for Pembroke and other clubs. There is yoga groups in the mornings, there's exercise classes every day. There are, and I exaggerate, zillions of dogs every afternoon, of which I'm one of the dog owners there, as well as other people exercising, using remote control cars, flying kites. It's a very well loved area. It also has tennis courts which are used, barbecue facilities, a playground, an RSL and KCLC, as well as the school's use of the oval. The placement of a skate park there would put greater pressure on the existing infrastructure, and I think that probably is unnecessary and would not be beneficial for the ratepayers. And because of the size restriction, we wouldn't have as good a skate park as possible. That is my deputation. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll take any questions.
Right. Are there any questions, please? Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Justin, for coming in. Tonight I received an email from a person saying they were against. Tonight I received an email from a person close to Newland Park against the wheel park at Erindale. So I'm not surprised by what you have said. At Erindale there are a number of different sports there as well, as you have at Kensington Park. My question to you is that to be able to sort this out, wouldn't it be best to have a feasibility study and some sort of concept design to decide which is the best venue?
Certainly. Look, I think that the point here is that if you look at any skate park designs which are implemented in the South Australian suburban area and wider, if you sort of go internationally, they are bigger than 200 square metres. And that area, if you would not even, the area which is there currently, within the space of the public art is less than 100 square metres. So you're not going to do much. You can't really make a big bowl, a skate bowl, or any half pipes. This is skating vernacular, within a space which is 100 square metres. You need to have considerably 4 or 5 times that space to make it worthwhile, which means you will have to remove that public artwork. Now, if you're happy to remove public artwork, well, that's up to you. But I think that would be a problem unto itself. I'm not saying that Newland necessarily is the place to go. Let's put it that way. However, Rochelle has said that Newland has been very popular, and that clearly has been the case. There probably would be other places which could be quite popular, but Newland obviously was successful because of its hard surface for the pump track, its proximity, because in the report, proximity to the local childcare centre, which was well subscribed, and probably other reasons which were provided in the report. So my deputation is primarily about the inadvisability of using Kensington Park at all because of the existing infrastructure. That's my problem. So I'm not dead set to say Newland Park has to be it, far from it. And there will be people who are for and against it, absolutely, and we'll always see that. However, I'm just thinking that at this stage, Kensington Park Oval, it would be a waste of time and council monies on using that or investigating that area.
Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, and you may or may not choose to answer this with your expertise, but I really thank you for giving the expertise in terms of the space required. One of the problems we've got in Burnside is space. So where would you think that a proper skate park, like a permanent one, could actually go, where there is enough space to accommodate the size of the thing, plus parking, plus people? Like, where would you recommend?
It's not my job.
No, you're right.
Look, seriously.
I was just trying.
No, you can try away, but I'm just saying that I'm not a skate park designer. Yeah. I have done some preliminary investigations to look at what skate parks look like, both in Australia and the United States, especially West Coast US, because that is the home of skating, has been for a very long time. There's a lot of examples of things not to do and things to do. Paradise, for instance, Paradise Interchange Skate Park is what not to do. It is basically a tip, and it's graffitied and it's full of rubbish. It's unused by skaters. Every skater, there's a whole blog of skaters to say which is a good park, which is a bad park. So you really want to use professional designer to say this. But approximate spaces, look, this is your job, is to tackle that with your works committee and find out where you can find space. I mean, it's not every council has the same problem. True. I mean, I think Roxby didn't, because when they put a skate park in, they had plenty of space. But yeah, I think every suburb has a problem, has a dilemma with
Strathalbyn
space.
found space, but it's country. Right, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Davey?
Thank you. More just to thank Justin for coming along tonight and giving us a perspective. Is there anything that you know of in the suburban area, without being putting you on the spot, that is an up-to-date facility that we could use as a good comparison for comparative purposes?
I understand.
Bearing in mind that we do need a designer to.
Yeah, look, I understand there is one Australian design firm which has done quite a few in South Australia, also Victoria and Western Australia, both in suburban and country areas. They've done one at Munopara, I think, is rather recently. Though skaters have complained about that because the concrete is a bit too slippery. So when it rains, they slide all over the place. Now, these skaters, let's put this in perspective, aren't 10-year-old kids. These are mid-20s to 30s to 40-year-olds. These are people who've been skating since they were kids, and they've gone and they will continue this. So this is where I think we need to be also mindful of how the design will be. This is what I'm saying about space. And I think of the analogy of, say, the swim centre at Hazelwood Park is you've got the little kiddies paddling pool, then you've got the big kids pool, and little kids on scooters can't go in those big bowls with kids or adults on full-size BMX bikes or skateboards. They just clash, all right? And also the other thing too is that these things aren't like organised sports in that you go play a game of footy and it's over and done with in 2 hours. People might be, like Rochelle said, you spend an entire day there. And people do that. They'll spend hours and hours, 4, 6, 8 hours skating. Because by the time that you have, if it's a busy park, by the time you line up, have you go, and then you go and queue, and then you keep on waiting. So, what you could see is very, very busy, very, very busy, and this is where we're looking at the infrastructure problems, which I think Kensington Park doesn't have, can't provide that at this stage.
Councillor Davis and then Councillor Carbone. Oh, sorry, I thought you were indicating you wanted to speak. Okay, Councillor Carbone then.
Thank you, Your Worship. Justin, thanks for coming in. And you've pretty much summarised the situation that we've been in for a long time. And every time we identify a site, yes, I do have a question, be quiet. Every time we identify a spot, it's the weaknesses that are brought out. So we find a spot that has lots of space, but it's too isolated and not accessible and so forth. So we're never really able to identify the absolute best spot that ticks every box there ever is. So my question is, are you sympathetic and understanding to our cause that we're not trying to find the best spot, just a really good spot?
Oh, absolutely. Everything, you people are politicians, so you're pragmatists. That's the whole process, isn't it? It's give and take. You never win everything. So you have to take what you can at some stages. Now, what I would want to see is the best facility provided by the council for the ratepayers of Burnside. And now, if you've got to also bear in mind that you open a skate park, you're going to have hundreds of people who don't belong in Burnside roll up and use it because it's new until the next one opens up. But that's, it's like hotels. A hotel gets renovated, it gets really busy until the next one gets renovated, and then everyone moves on. In this instance, I think, yes, there will be a compromise. Sure, absolutely. And I'm sure this has been an ongoing dilemma. It's clearly been a problem for quite some time of identifying a site and then allocating a respectable budget to complete the works. Now, I would like to see that if we do this, like I said before, is we do something properly. Now, that might not mean a 500 square metre site, like a full-blown park. It might have to be a compromise, and it might have to be age-specific as well. And just say, well, we might have to go back to that drawing board and start negotiations with Campbelltown and the City of Adelaide again, and say, let's see where you're going to be going, because they are the closest councils with prospective skate park facilities in the works, right? So yes, we have to take that into account. Like I said, this is your dilemma. I'm just saying that Kensington Park Oval is not an ideal site because you just will not be able to fit it in. And look, Kensington Park Gardens Reserve has got much bigger open space up there.
We tried that
Yep.
one.
Well, I'm saying that if you are looking at a bit, East Terrace has got a big block of land next to the tennis court. That's massive. And that would be ideal because you've got a lot of parking there. You might have to put up some more toilets and some more bins, but compared to the impact, and there's no major trees there, that's a big flat bit of grass doing nothing except being mowed. Right, so this is where the pragmatism comes in. There's an ideal site for you. I've proposed an ideal site, and you say, no, unfortunately, that's been rejected. All right, so that's the way it is. But what I'm saying is that you need to have a reasonable size, and Kensington Park, because of that oval, is so busy already, to put more pressure on the infrastructure would be too much for it, I think.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Otherwise, I think thank yous to Justin very much for coming in and
Pleasure,
speaking
thank you
to
very
us.
much.
So I'm going to run through the reports now and ask for those of you who wish to withdraw them for debate. First of all, 11.1, the Dulwich Community Centre, Councillor Henschke. Pump track trial, Councillor Davis. Schedule of fees and charges. If no one wishes to, then you're going to move it, Councillor Hughes. Seconded, Councillor Lemon. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Next is the annual business plan. Councillor Piggott. The appointment of the council representative to EBEC. Councillor, you wish to withdraw it, Councillor Davey? Mayor's activity report. Come on, somebody just move it. And thank you, Councillor Piggott. Seconded, Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Carried. Leave of absence. I've already done that earlier on, but out of order. But we've covered that, and your leave has been granted, Councillor Henschke. I think that is it, isn't it? Yes. Okay. So we will go back to now the Dulwich Community Centre, Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm moving an alternate motion. It's on the screen. Thank you. That I, Councillor Henschke, move that there is agreement in principle that the retention and renovation of the Dulwich Community Centre is the preferred option going forward to create a reduced size boutique community centre, including a facade to complement the character of Union Street. 2, in line with the City of Burnside project management framework, receive a report as soon as practicable, detailing the following. 2.1, concept drawings of the proposed renovation, revised building frontage to complement the character of Union Street, indicative costings, timeframes for delivery, funding options including potential grant funds, strategies to maximise community utilisation, compliance with the Disability Inclusion Act, internal renovation details including toilets and kitchen area, provision of off-street parking, how current users will be catered for during the proposed renovation period, recognition of the previous contribution from Lions Club of Burnside and Daisy Salotti, landscaping and planting options for the site. 3, allocated $18,000 in the third quarter 2020-2021 budget review to facilitate the development of the report. Thank you, councillors. We've heard from 2 deputations this evening. Clearly there is an amazing need in the community and an incredible offering from the community of people who have volunteered and giving to everyone in their martial arts and dance, for example. Martial arts is very interesting. It provides, foundation for movement. This is so important for our young people, and we know that we need to do more for our young people in the city of Burnside from our surveys that we do conduct. The city of Burnside has a third of its families, the fact is a third of its families have children, and we are constantly catering for children in the area. The site is located near a bus stop. We're encouraging greener transport, and our strategy, I referred to our strategy and our new directors and roles. We have the Director of Environment in place, and no better time if we got than now with a new organisation structure for the Director of Environment in place to work with the community and provide a facility that's fit for purpose. It's clear that community centres do provide incredible benefits. They're places for someone to talk to. They're accidental and formal counselling occurrences. They provide referrals and linkages for people. There's adult communication possibilities, health promotion. The community, we've heard, have petitioned. I last presented a petition for 500 users and residents in the area and non-residents. So clearly there is a strong need. The community survey that was conducted a few years ago clearly showed some interesting results. There was quite a strong overall choice of the community to renovate. The comments in the survey say that it was the selected options to renovate followed closely by the status quo option, and we don't have to go out to community consultation again. The project management framework will direct us, and I am very confident in the administration in developing a project that meets the requirements of the community. Finally, this centre is placed so close to the Dulwich precinct, and I'm so excited that we could have a small hub, a neighbourhood house or community centre close to a commercial centre that will feed each of these organisations will feed off of each other. And I think this is a sensible step forward for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carbone. Do you wish to speak now or...?
I'll speak now,
okay.
While I'm thinking about it. I'm torn when it comes to the Dulwich Community Centre. I think the best way I can describe my feelings towards the centre is a bit of a love-hate relationship, where I love the centre because it is, to much surprise, adored by our community. In the same way, it annoys me It annoys me because on paper, if we were building it now, on paper, you would never do it because it's a small street, there's no parking, it's very narrow, it's close to neighbouring properties and so forth. So it has its pros and its cons. And so if I had my way, I probably would pick it up and move it somewhere else, like the Glenunga hub and so forth. But the residents continue to sway me. They seem to like it the way it is. They seem to don't mind the parking. They seem to don't really mind too much that the building is the way it is. They like it the way it is. So I think we'll be very hard pressed to go against countless surveys which seem to indicate the status quo every single time. So as much as I don't like the centre and I don't like the situation it's in, I'm forced to love the centre just the way it is because I respect the wishes of the community. So if they want the status quo, if they want exactly the way it is and the residents are happy, well, I'm happy too.
Thank you, Councillor Carbone. Councillor Davis.
I don't think the standard of the Dulwich Community Centre is something that our residents expect from us. And I think it's well below the standard which is expected. I think that it doesn't meet the relevant codes as it should for a community and publicly accessible building. And we as the council have a responsibility to meet those standards. Primarily what I think is important about the Dulwich Community Centre is the groups that use it. Strength for Life, flamenco dancing, and the karate club, of which, you know, I'm a green belt, so love my karate.
A young green belt.
Young green belt. Came second in the kata competition.
They do ballroom dancing there too.
And they do ballroom dancing there. But I think that that's the purpose, is what it's currently being used for is a particular purpose. And what we need to look at is how do we deliver that aim, how do we deliver that purpose for our community? This is the service that is required, and how do we deliver that service? And that should be, and the last deputy said it, he said, I don't envy your job, you need to be pragmatic about these things. And you need to have a process about how you think about measuring what the needs of the community are, and then how do you deliver it to them. I'm not at all romantic about probably about this building, but very few other public spaces. And what I look at is from a pragmatic point of view. To my mind, $1.7 million is what, a third of the hub in terms of the facility that you could potentially build. You could build a third of a hub. So you take 1.7 times 3, that gives you Glenunga Hub. That's a facility. That is a facility, that is a flagship facility for the City of Burnside Council. Does Dulwich Community Centre, in its location and current form, warrant 1/3 of the hub's worth of investment? I question that. I think that the report that Councillor Henschke is asking for tonight is well thought through, and I think what the community are really saying, and they've said it, what I get from it is that, no, it's not worth spending $1.7 million on. I think that's what they're saying. But what they are saying is that in its current state, it's highly useful, and they enjoy that facility and they can continue to use it, but it's not worth $1.7 million in spending on it. And I think that the community, though, that is there, and the reason why you see the petition there, is that they are anxious about what happens next if we don't, say, commit to it. If we don't continue on that facility, does it mean disbanding? So I think there is a large amount of fear there. So for the foreseeable future, I'm happy to actually support one, because I can't, I think for the foreseeable future, Dulwich Community Centre is an appropriate, it needs to continue to do its job and provide the offering that it is currently giving to our community. But I think that is a changing scenario. I think if we ask our question, you know, if we ask this chamber, I think even Councillor Henschke said previously that 1.7 was, that seemed to be far too much, and surely we can do it for much cheaper. So I think that we can look at a measured investment in there, potentially in the toilets and the infrastructure to bring it up to some minimum standard. But is it worth a full 1/3 of a hub? I don't think so. But again, we need to look at, I think we need to be pragmatic in this going forward. So I'm happy to support this motion tonight, and I'm happy to receive the report from the administration. But I'll be looking at this as a pragmatic approach in future years to come.
Councillor Lemon.
I have a question, if I may. Something I just want on the public record. There's been a lot of talk about this sprung floor. And my understanding, and I heard talk about this sprung floor 10 years ago, and then I was disabused of that when somebody said that's not a sprung floor. You were misinformed by that particular former CEO. It's just a good wooden floor. Can somebody please, for the public record, tell the world what that floor is all about?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can inform you that it is simply a well-worn traditional wooden floor.
Well, I hate to spring this on us now.
Boom, boom.
You have another question, or do you wish to speak?
No, I'll speak now. I can't support this, I'm afraid, for a number of reasons. One is we are circumventing community consultation. Now, two people tonight have actually said that we've had countless surveys and the community has spoken. Well, it hasn't. We've had countless surveys and we've got this motion, which is an officer's recommendation before us tonight, because the countless surveys have not been conclusive. And the reason that nothing's happened at Dulwich, from one council to the next council to the next council, is that there has been no conclusive direction from the community. Now, you can say that we heard from the community tonight, but we didn't. We actually heard from tenants of the centre who, quite rightly somebody else has said tonight, are worried where they might go next and where they can possibly find another sprung floor as good as that one, where they can dance with the nails in the bottom of their shoes. Now, I do get that, and I think we should try very hard to find alternative places for those groups that are already very, very well used in that area. But I think the first thing we need to do is to go to our community, because it's okay to look at this and say, oh, we're just going to fix the tiles in the toilet and do a bit of landscaping and fling some paint at the front so it doesn't look so bad. But I actually don't think that that solves the problem. It just gives the problem to the next council. And the time has come to actually make a decision about this. Now, we can make a decision as a council, but I would much prefer to do what the original motion has called for, and that is to go to the citywide community and ask our ratepayers, shall we go on with this? Shall we renovate this? We've given them 3 options. I'd like those 3 options to be numbered, so we've got somehow when we go out with those 3 options, what I want at the end of this survey period is something definitive coming back. So 1, 2 and 3 if you don't mind, and if we have to go to preferences, we'll go to preferences. But this is the 3rd council I've sat in where we've talked about the Dulwich Community Centre, and this motion that we've got tonight doesn't deal with the issues. It just gives it to the next council. I don't think that's good enough. I think we need to go out to community consultation. I think we need to go for the officer's recommendation, and I think we ought to just do it.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, let's just do it. Absolutely, let's just do it. I completely agree with Councillor Lemon there, but I disagree in terms of not wanting to hear the community speak. We've been inundated with lots of emails over the last 3 months and even longer from many users and ratepayers of the Dulwich Community Centre. Only a couple of months ago, we received a petition with 446 valid signatures on it. A huge response in terms of our normal community consultation that we'd normally do, all supporting the Dulwich Community Centre and wanting to retain it. I am very supportive of this motion. I think it just, let's do it and let's see how much we might be able to get away with doing a quick renovation job, as we've been hearing from all of the users of that facility. Don't rip it down, the floors are good, keep it as usual, keep the costs low. And I would actually like to see what potentially a report in doing that could do. So I'm very much behind this. motion. I think it is the pragmatic approach to go. Let's not waste our time and money going out to community consultation when we know what the answer already is with all of the feedback that we've got to date. So I would definitely support this, so I am. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes and then Councillor.
I just want to first of all thank Councillor Henske for sharing it before the meeting tonight, because the motion last time, which I had passed on to Councillor Henske, it kind of caught me in a strange way, because I was supporting Dulwich Community Centre, but I wasn't supporting exactly the motion there. And as a council, I thought we needed a bit more time. So I'm glad we've had 2 weeks to think about it. A lot of thought has gone into this motion, mainly because I think Councillor Henske's got a project management background here. But just what Councillor Corner said is so true, that we saw the petition last time where Councillor Henske waived all those sheets of paper. So I think we do know the answer. We do know the answer. I don't think we need to go for another consultation. But look, a lot of thought's gone into it. I am supportive on this occasion. Thank you.
Councillor Piggott.
A question, could through you, Mayor, is administration's understanding of this motion, is what is being asked for a quickie renovation job? Is that as they see it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say, in my mind, it is not a quickie renovation, but what I would be exploring here is perhaps a spectrum of cost, and I'd like to present to Council perhaps a number of options, with the view being to get an outcome to present a facility that is in keeping with the expectations of the City of Burnside residents, but ideally, to my mind, much less than 1.7 million. That's where my head's at with this recommendation.
Do you wish to speak, Councillor Piggott?
Could I? Yeah. Look, I'm slightly worn down on this. These things eventually get you, the relentlessness of the petitions and the emails. I've been contacted by email by a lot of people, not a lot of ratepayers necessarily, they might have been, but they were generally users of the facility, concerned about what service it provides, and I'm all up for maintaining that. Whether we need to maintain it there, I think is still a question. I don't disagree with Councillor Lemon, but I am going to support this motion, and the reason I'm going to is that I feel to go out with the 3 sort of broad topics as to which one you pick. I think that the lobbying within the community will actually bring back the same answer. Whether it's the right answer and reflects community, I would still question. But I think what might happen here is at least we can get some guts and some flesh out exactly what it does mean to spend money on that current site. How much it will be, we've had $300,000 thrown at us that we can do it for that. If that comes up trumps at the end, it's probably got a good chance of getting my vote. It will also hopefully explore what it means with an improved facility, more usage, more people going there, where they park, how we get to use it all the time, how we get to use the backyard, which we can't currently because of the current rules. So I am up for a detailed look on the concept of fixing this place up and leaving it there. And I think it does at least give us a chance to get some really good information that eventually will inform, presumably, fixing it up. But I do feel that it's not necessarily the view of the community, and it certainly isn't the view of the community if you absolutely got everybody to look at this issue with a decent amount of time with all the facts. Now, that's not possible, but I think if anyone does that, you do not actually spend any money more on a facility in a side street that doesn't have any parking and you can't use the whole time. What you do is you find out another place that has a fantastic non-sprung floor for flamenco dancing. You find a home for Strength for Life. You make sure those people have somewhere to do what they want to do, and you do something else with the property. I do support, however, this motion.
Councillor Hughes.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I will very briefly. I won't support the motion. I do support the officer's recommendation, because we're saying here that in principle the community agree to retention and renovation. And I did ask for us all to be resent the consultation. I know the last few weeks we've had issues understanding about majorities, but only 49% of people said yes and 51% said no. So it's not actually a majority of people that are saying we should renovate this site. Look, I think the survey was probably not well presented, and I think people probably answered, it was, here's the 6 options, do you support this, yes, no, and everyone's answered yes, no, rather than please select your preferred option. I think that was probably a fault of the survey, which is why we're left with inconclusive information, and I think that's why we should actually go back and relook at this and do it properly, because I do, similarly to Councillor Piggott, have a concern. I know he's worn down, so he'll probably just roll with it. But I do think that what we're going to do is we're going to invest money into something, and we're actually not going to get the best facility that we can possibly get, and that's a real risk. And I don't disagree with the sentiment that people love this space, they like the floor, they like this, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, to retrofit an existing building is an expensive exercise, and you won't get the best outcome because you're limited by the existing plumbing, the constraints of where doors are and access and all that kind of thing. If you actually just started from scratch with a clean slate, if you were going to design a community centre, you would get a better outcome. So I think this risks pushing us down a path, and I, for one, am one of those people that have spent a lot of time here in the last 2.5 years thinking, gosh, things are really slow in local government. And here I am saying, let's go back and redo a survey. But I do feel that we're not going to get the best outcome by just going down this path and saying the majority of people said we should renovate, because the majority of people actually said, no, we shouldn't renovate the site, according to the data that we've been presented. So I will not support this motion as it stands, but I don't disagree with the sentiment behind the motion.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Davey.
I have a question. I'm torn, but I just don't understand what a reduced size boutique community centre would be. Can someone enlighten me about, is that reduced building size or what?
Yes, certainly. Through Madam Mayor, the wording was included there to allow us to create some room at the front of the site to include particularly some off-street all abilities parking, and also try and enhance the entrance to the site. My understanding is we'll obviously be trying to maximise the available space and only reduce it to the absolute need that we require just to enhance the entry and also achieve that off-street parking. So it's not to decrease it any more than is absolutely needed.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, Councillor Jones.
Look, I'll support this motion. I think what Councillor Carbone says is right, but the fact is, to have a facility in the perfect position with all the car parking we want would cost an arm and a leg. So sometimes we have to take choices, and we've got this site. I'm confident we can do it for less than 1.7 million, because I've got the quantity surveyor saying you could demolish the bloody thing and rebuild it for 1.3. So I'm struggling to see how it costs that much, but so let's proceed. The fact is, the last community consultation said 40% keep, 40% rebuild. Adding that up is 80% when you look at the 3 options in the officer's recommendation. That seems pretty clear-cut to me. The 2 ward councillors are in favour. They're the people who are going to get a neck from the residents. I think we should support them.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, I shall go back to Councillor Henschke. All right, to sum up.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick. Look, that was great debate. The thing is, though, we do need to get more information, right? And when we develop a project, that's what you do. You invest a little bit of money to get that information. And we've heard from the administration tonight. It's about developing some options now. We're clear that we're not going to demolish or close the centre down. That's not a strategic alternative anymore. We've got a petition of 500 people. We've had deputations tonight. It's been going on for years. Let it go. Let's just listen to the community. It's a bespoke, beautiful area. It's a ward with a rich group of people with experiences, international connections. I mean, what did you hear tonight? Wasn't that fantastic? I was so impressed, and I'm really valuing that community. They belong in that centre. We need to provide them with a better toilet so their visitors can go and flush the loo and, and enjoy the facilities. It really is going to be very exciting to hear what this creative administration is going to come back with. I really am very confident that we've got the project team. They're ready to develop the project and work with the community on what the needs are, what their requirements are, and come up with something that's going to be really special for the city of Burnside. So thank you for all your support.
Right, those in favour? Those against?
Division?
Division's been called, so those in favour please stand. Right, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Piggott, Councillor Carbone, Councillor Dawes, Councillor Jones and Councillor Hubel. Those against, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Davey, Councillor Davis and Councillor Lemon. And the motion is carried. Right, we now move to Councillor Davis, that is the pump track.
I have an alternative motion to the officer's recommendation. I'd quickly like to say that I'd like to move this in three parts tonight to make it easier for the debate. I'd first like to move items, I think it's 1 to 7. Yeah. No. Yeah, 1 to 7, is that right? Yeah, okay. So in my view, the first thing that I'd like to talk to is whether we should continue with a pump track within the City of Burnside Council. I think it's been hugely successful, and I think we've all seen how popular it has been. And if you've gone down there, you've seen the parents and the kids enjoying that facility. This motion talks about an increased length to it, or a rhythm straight, which would cost about $10,000, that I think would massively add to the use of the facility. And furthermore, it continues the rotation of the pump track throughout the City of Burnside Council. This part of this motion, I think, feeds into the next part, is that this pump track would be a rotating facility that would go around the City of Burnside Council and encourage children who are nearby to that or in that local suburb to go and attend, and it's an easy way to get them outside and doing something active. And I don't think that it would be, it's something that's transportable and temporary, and I don't think that would be an excess burden on our community. And I really do think that this is really a fantastic and unique offering that the City of Burnside Council will be offering to its residents, which I don't think occurs in any other council really that I can think of. So I'm happy to commend this to you, and I think that it's been a huge success, and I see no reason why we shouldn't continue it, as well as offering this pump track to neighbouring councils who I also think could benefit from it for a period of time. So I hope you support this. I consider it fairly uncontroversial. Councillor Lemon, you wishing to second?
I'm happy to second. No, I'm happy to second this. I think this is an excellent motion. I was a bit iffy, I have to say, with this pump track, the portable pump track right at the beginning, but I'm a convert. What I really love about this pump track is that it gives the opportunity for quite small children to exercise, up to about 10 or 11 and older, but certainly children that are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in a really safe environment, they're able to use their scooters and their little wheelie things. And I think that's great. The other thing that I think is great about this, so I'm a convert, fantastic. The other thing that's great about it is the fact that it moves around. It is really sharing the love across the different suburbs, and it means that this outdoor play area can come to a place near you soon. And I think that we should explore other places that might need a little bit more paving here and there, so it can be even further used in different areas. So yes, let's get the extra bit that gives you the main straight, and let's keep using this, and let's keep reviewing it. I think this is an excellent motion. Thank you very much, Councillor Davis.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Don't see any hands.
Your Worship, I just realised that I may have surprised the Chamber and not fully explained the actual difference, essentially, from this motion to the original motion. And can I simply say that largely the only difference is to remove Newland Park as a prescribed place and for the administration to come back at a future date with further locations for the pump track. Sorry to interrupt.
All right. You're happy with that explanation, everybody? Okay. All right, Councillor Henschke, and then I think there's a hand up over Councillor Dawes, and then Councillor Davey.
I can't see, is it 7, then 8?
See the bottom of it as well.
Can we just scroll down, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So, did you want to speak or just no? Okay. So the next one was Councillor Dawes.
It was a question. I thought
Why did you take Newland Park out?
1 to 7 are going to be the same, except for 3.3. But we've missed out Kensington Park Reserve as also being one of the most popular locations. I don't know if that's an error or that was meant to be.
The motion is correct.
So you've removed Kensington Park Reserve, is that correct?
No.
Question.
And I guess that we will address that at the end, unless you're trying to make an amendment to the motion.
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Lim, could you turn your microphone on?
Oh,
All right, so now I should actually be able to be heard at home. Councillor Henschke, you wish to speak?
I have a question, please. What will the results of this new round of tests contribute to? Will they possibly contribute to a permanent pump track as well as a bigger skate park? I'm just not clear. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding is that the results of our previous locations plus these proposed locations will enable us to formulate a schedule which we can put in place that the community can then expect year on year to be rolled out across the city. So we'll have a lot of data to establish times and locations.
I might just add a point to number 6. I know that Councillor Davis did go and talk to Campbelltown Council. I was talking to the Mayor of Campbelltown yesterday. They are going to be going ahead with renovating their Paradise Skate Park, possibly in the next 12 months, in their next budget, depending on grants. So they are spending their money on their own park. So I just wanted to explain that for those of you who might not have actually known that that's actually absolutely accurate as number 6. Okay. I think it was Councillor Dawes and then, Councillor Davey was next. And then Councillor Dawes, Councillor Jones, sorry. Davey, Jones.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to support this motion. I thank Councillor Davis for his consideration of this and all the implications of it. I was quite concerned about the prioritising of all the pump tracks, because I'm quite concerned. I have a lot of concerns about the feedback register which was provided, and that I don't think it was statistically valid, because we didn't actually differentiate between people who are actually Burnside residents and didn't determine who was a Burnside resident and who wasn't, which is a key part of our community consultation. But I think this is a good, it's a standout that Newland Park was a very popular location. It had 4 times more loops and kilometres run and everything else and use than Kensington Park. Pump track, I dispute what was put in the report. I think that was a bit inaccurate. But I think Newland Park, yes, deserves to be omitted from this section, and I would like to see us explore. There's a whole lot more. I mean, it seems to be that the tennis court locations, from all the feedback we heard tonight, are the most suitable, the most practical for the kids, particularly to rotate it between tennis courts. And I'd like to see, we're upgrading a whole lot of facilities at the moment. We've got a whole lot of new tennis courts and tennis facilities and other sporting facilities which might be appropriate. So I'd like to see those being considered as suitable locations for ongoing rotation. So I'm very happy to support this.
Councillor Jones.
Sorry, I may be being dumb. If we pass this motion, do we get to talk about a permanent skate park tonight? We do? Because that's not normally our current practice. If you run a motion and then that's it.
He actually explained at the beginning he was splitting it into two parts. Three parts. The next person to speak on here is Councillor Hughes. And then it's Councillor Dawes and then it's Councillor Piggott.
Look, I do want to be consistent here in regards to number 7. I think we should say, as was in the officer's recommendation, that Newland Park and Kensington Park Reserve were the most popular locations. That's a true statement. Now, the reason why Newland Park was so popular was because it was in a hard stand area. It was the only sport location of the 4 that was in a hard stand area. So because of that, it was so much better than the others. So I think we should be, and it's an amendment for me, that we add and Kensington Park Reserve were the most popular locations in number 7 to be truthful to this motion.
I'm happy to accept that as a variation to replace 7 with the original 7.
Okay, all right, thank you. You got a seconder though.
Seconder was Councillor Lemon. Are you okay with that? Yep, I'm happy with that. Note that the 4 locations, were the most popular. All clear on that? It's not an amendment, just an addition with the acceptance of the 2 mover and seconder. Now, on my list here, I have Councillor Hughes next, and then it's Councillor Piggott.
I was just going to ask of the administration, point 3.3, the third location to be considered. It seemed to me that there had been a bit of thought around the juggling of timing. So I'm just wondering, I guess, when that third location would be presented to us and whether that would have any implications on the timings that were presented in the recommendation.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through your worship, we can proceed to Langman Reserve straight away. That doesn't give us any conflicts. We are not able to access Penfold Park until August, due to netball use at Penfold Park. So we would either have to keep it at Langman for that period until August, or we would bring a report back during its occupation at Langman, with a third location that we would then be able to move during that period before it goes to Penfold Park. But that's something we would have to consider.
Okay, with that, Councillor Hughes? All right, then you don't wish to speak now, just had the question. Now, Councillor Piggott.
Got a couple of questions, but one at a time, I guess. Can I just confirm the two spaces that are here, Langman and Penfold Park, will they allow the full? I note in the last year we couldn't always put the full track out. Will they both allow the full track as it is, the 66 metres plus the additional rhythm straight? Is that right?
Through your worship, they're slightly smaller than the full size which was experienced at Newland. And that's because they're single courts in these locations. We estimate about 60 metres, as opposed to the 66 that was at Newland.
Plus the 10 we're about to buy.
Plus the 10 straight that we have there.
So it is 70?
Councillor Pickett, you can hold your question because Councillor Hubel wants to ask a question and then I'll come back to you. Unless you wish to speak.
But that wasn't really explained.
Through your worship, sorry. The loop itself would be slightly smaller than the maximum size that we were able to provide at Newland, just because of the configuration of the tennis court. However, the extra purchase of the straight section will allow us to provide more pump track space to the side of the loop that's slightly smaller. Does that explain that?
So you can use it all in those two locations?
Slightly smaller loop, but more space than we previously provided in the previous location because of the extension. External to it, external to the loop.
Okay, Councillor Hubel, you have a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nina Marnie, I greet you all this evening. Question through you to the administration. The report elected Newland Park to be returned to for a second visit as a trial. Is there value in returning to Newland Park to get more information or more perspective on popularity of the pump track in the community, in terms of, you know, the first time it went there, it was new and exciting. Is there value in going back again to find out whether there was, that wasn't just an anomaly?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Kent.
Through your worship, that was certainly part of the rationale behind the recommendation, absolutely. As one of the deputies said earlier on, when something is new, it attracts a lot of visitors, so a return to the most popular location would determine whether or not that same location would have the same level of interest a second time around. Second part of that was to also, in our thoughts, to reward the area that was most popular last time by returning it there again.
Now, Councillor Pickett, do you have another question or do you wish to speak?
One question I have is whether the mover would consider another variation and perhaps put number 3 back to the way it was as well. Yes, I have another question. Yeah, another question. Look, it's really on this most popular, and it may be significant later on, I feel. At the table in number 17, I question why and how you can actually say that that Kensington Park is in with Newland Park as the most popular, because actually if you do the numbers and you don't count the lap, rather than going on laps because it was actually shorter, it would appear that actually there's been more kilometres covered on the face of it by people at Miller Reserve. So I think the jury's out at best in regard to whether Kensington Park should rate ahead of Miller Reserve. And then the numbers for Miller Reserve and Kensington Park are significantly smaller than Newland Park, Burnside. So it's slightly rhetorical, I guess, but I would like perhaps some commentary on why that happened, because I just don't think it's actually correct and it shouldn't be in a recommendation.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Kent.
Yeah, through the worship. Yep, you're absolutely correct. The difference in lengths of the tracks certainly provide an anomaly when you compared kilometres travelled or potential kilometres travelled throughout the period. There is no way at all to tell when people got on or off or did a full lap and had an accurate, there was no way to tell actually how far was travelling each of those were. The only thing that we could tell was counting when the lap counter went through. Therefore, we used lap counting as an indicative measure of success that was consistent across all of the tracks. In terms of the laps that were counted, Kensington Park was the second popular in terms of the laps done, and that was just one of the other ways that we measured success, including the feedback forms, staff visits, and information that we got from the users of the site. We concluded that we believed it was the second most popular site.
I think you still have to do a lap to get around to the lap calculator a second time, don't you? But anyway.
Right, are there any further questions or anyone else wishes to speak?
Can I speak?
Yes, Councillor.
Look, I won't support this. I do actually think, with the exception of Kensington Park Reserve being one of the most popular, the original recommendation was right. I think Newland Park doesn't make sense to me to not have Newland Park in there. Perhaps the mover can explain that more fully in summing up, and perhaps I'll leave open which way I'm going to vote on it. I don't have a problem in principle. It's clearly been a good result, and it's important we keep it out there and keep it working. So certainly I don't have a problem with that, but I think Newland Park probably should be one of the three.
All right, I shall go back to Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much for your commentary. I'm glad we moved it in this way. The reason why Newland Park is in there is it's something we've already done. So what I wanted councillors to look at was 2 new places within the City of Burnside Council that would be new facilities. What I actually envisaged is that the third location and the report that will come back to us will look at over a much longer period, perhaps a couple of years or even 3 years, a 3-year schedule of potentially where the pump track will go. Now, to my mind, if you have a look at that table, there is no doubt that Kensington Park Reserve can't hold a candle to Newland. It just can't. Newland Reserve was absolutely by far the most popular location for it, and I went down there and I saw the community, and Newland Reserve is clearly the most popular thing to do. Now, but I don't want you to vote against the motion because Newland Reserve isn't in there. If you have a look at the motion, that's still to be determined, and what I was looking to do is to find 2 new locations that we hadn't previously considered to get the ball rolling and to continue with the rotation of the pump track. And I think that when the administration comes back with a list of locations which is under point 4, that I think Newland will be in there, and if it's not, we should put it in there. And we should add it to, and we should come up with a routine for the City of Burnside Council so that we know where it's going to be in any given particular year, perhaps over a 2-year cycle. And that was my reason for taking out Newland Reserve. The second thing is, if you look at point 7, please don't vote against this motion on that point. It's noting a particular point, and it's not untrue to say, and if you have a look at the total laps counted, that Kensington Park is the second most popular in terms of laps. But I say again, it doesn't hold a candle to Newland. It really doesn't. And if you look at, you can kind of pick, statistics are always fun. You've got 3 columns to go and pick from, and you can go and pick, and the only clear thing to me is that Newland Park wins every single one of those columns. And yes, I agree that the other 3, it's not so clear, but that's the reason why point 7 is notes that these are the 2 most popular. That's the original administration's point there. You lose nothing by supporting this motion. Please don't let that be the only thing that would stop you. I really do hope that you can support this. I think have in your mind what you've seen of the pump track to date, and I truly do believe that this is the best way forward for the City of Burnside Council in looking at the pump track version only, and leave the debate for the next 2 motions in terms of what do we do about a more permanent skate park here. So I really do hope that you can support this motion.
Right, those in favour? Those against? Carried. So you have another part to this, Councillor Davis.
I'll just quickly read it. That Council approves a feasibility study together with the development of a concept design to be completed on Newland Park to determine its suitability for a permanent wheel park facility. Councillors, we need to look at what we do next. And to my mind, I think in today's age, we should be encouraging kids to get out there. And I think that we've heard from some of those kids who've used the pump track to date and what it meant for them. And I do believe that the pump track, as it goes around the City of Burnside Council, encourages kids to take an interest in riding their bikes and jumping on their scooters, which most of them actually have as they go to school. I have one now, and their bikes, and potentially pick up a skateboard. But mainly, I think it is actually scooters that children predominantly have. Once they hit a certain age, about 10, about 12, they start to outgrow that kind of pump track. And I think what we should look at then is what? Do we want to continue that type of behaviour? Do we want to continue that active activity as their parents slowly lose control and they turn towards computers and staying inside? And I think that it all comes down to habits. It comes down to habits of staying outside, and I think that where we should look at doing that is at Newland Park. I think that's an excellent location. Of all the locations, that has been an absolute standout. It's nestled between Burnside Primary and the St. Peter's Girls' School, just up the road. It's close to a coffee shop, and it's well within walking distance of a local IGA, which is a 3-minute bike ride away from that particular spot. So it's also located next to tennis courts, and I actually saw kids, I actually think it was one of the deputies, got off his bike and he actually went and kicked a soccer ball and played soccer tennis on the tennis courts, which are next door. And I also saw kids running around on the open field next door to it. Now, that particular location, I think, has such strong merit in that oval is sloped. It will always be difficult to use. But as the young lady who came and gave a deputation said, it's away from traffic, it's away from main roads, and for her it was an ideal location. Essentially what they're saying to us is it will stop them skateboarding on the street, which I think we can all agree is a good thing. And it encourages them, it gives them a destination after they finish with a pump track trial. Now, this council, I know, there's a lot more work to be done on this. What this is to do a feasibility and a concept design, which would then go out to community consultation. There's a long way to go in this, but to my mind, this is the next step in progressing a permanent wheel park facility in the City of Burnside, and it may not succeed. It may not get the representation, may not get the consultation to push it through, but I truly believe that Newland Park Reserve, and after seeing the success that it's been there and the unique, I suppose the offering that it has in that particular place makes it the best possible location in the City of Burnside, and I hope that councillors, you will support a feasibility study and a concept design so that residents can be aware of what it would look like, and also that then we can go to consultation and hear their views. I seek your support.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Hubel, do you wish to speak or withhold? Okay, anyone wish to speak on this? Councillor Lemon.
I have a question, if I may, to the administration through you. The feasibility study for this, would that, in the first instance, would that also include some sort of guesstimation of what local people might have to say, or would that be left to the whole thing going out to consultation once the concept design had been done?
Through and if I can refer that to Mr. Kent.
The reason I ask is, to me, feasibility might be preparedness of neighbours to a degree.
Thanks, Chris. Through your worship, we wouldn't recommend a full community consultation process on those locations at this stage. The feasibility study will take an analysis of the site suitability, the environment, the existing uses as well. So we will have to talk to some key stakeholders with respect to their use of some of the sporting facilities or recreational facilities. But in terms of, is this an ideal site and this is what a wheel park facility will look like, we wouldn't go to that step until we had a consultation and a position of council that they wish to proceed to that stage, would be our recommendation.
Councillor Dawes, you wish to speak?
Yes, I do. I guess I'm also speaking on behalf of Councillor Turnbull, who's not here tonight. I just wanted to emphasise the point that Councillor Davis made. This is the change to the officer's recommendation where the feasibility study is developed at the same time as the concept design. I think that's a very important point. I guess that, you know, there's a golden rule I was told the other day. Don't tell me what you're doing, show me what you're doing. I think that was so pertinent here. I don't know. But I think we do need to be upfront as to what it could look like, because otherwise I can sense that there will be assumptions made from those against it, and they'll see it be as a concrete jungle or something like that, and all that sort of thing, and it won't be like that, I'm sure. And I know that not everybody will be happy wherever it's placed, and with the next motion I am going to support that, because I am seeking some sort of a comparison point. I'm not saying Kensington Gardens or Kensington Park Reserve is better than Newland or vice versa. I just need a comparison. But I just want to take you back to the Tasman Park wading pool and what we went through there. And we sought community consultation. We got some concept designs. There are some residents against it, but because we were up front with the residents, I think 95% were in favour of what we decided anyhow. So it could have been a very difficult time for this council, but it certainly helped with getting that design over the line. So I will be supporting this, but on the understanding that we do need a comparison point with Newland Park.
Did you mean with Kensington Park? Yep. Okay, Councillor Henschke, did you wish to speak?
Yes, a question, please, through the Mayor. What is the cost of this project development phase, and will we be receiving options for different concepts or just one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, in my mind this is about presenting one concept for this particular site. I might just refer the cost part to Mr. Cant.
Through your worship, we've estimated this section of the project development to be approximately 15,000, depending on the complexity of the design, the location and the consultants required. And I do agree with Chris that it would be one concept presented. However, the feasibility study will initially look at the wider park or reserve and look at some of the constraints that were talked about previously, whether it should be on a tennis court, whether it should be on a grassed area next to it, how can that be managed? So we'll look at initial options for the entire site before we then come back with a preferred concept.
And next question is from Councillor Davis.
Councillor Henschke's question about cost was my question, so it's been answered. Thank you.
If I may, and it is about the cost, has there been provision made in this year's budget for this? Or is this an added 15 grand plus?
Through Madam Mayor, take advice from Mr. Cooper, but I think we'll have to refer this to the third quarter review.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, that cost that's been provided will have to be put forward as a variation in the Q3 budget review that's about to be presented to Council.
Right, Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, just to clarify that, so is that $15,000 per site? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Councillor Cornish.
Can I just a rough ballpark of what our current surplus is for the year?
Through Madam Mayor, in fairness to Mr. Cooper, I think it's pretty unfair. Oh, he wants to have a go at answering it. Okay. I was going to try and save. I might hold you to this number.
Okay, thank you. Through the Mayor, I was going to say, don't quote me, but I believe it's 2.4 million.
We've had lots of questions, but not much debate so far. Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. I'm very emotional about this particular subject, so I'm going to say a lot less than I normally do. I just wanted to thank the staff for the massive undertaking over the past 12 months. I know Kelly and Barry and so forth have put in a lot of work, in particular with this matter, and I think it's important that we acknowledge them at this point in time and thank them for their efforts. It has been a long journey. We're not there yet, but we can see the light. We can see the light on the horizon. It feels good. It feels good where we're at. I think it's very safe to say we are definitely on a winner. We've done our homework. We've done our due diligence. We've done our community consultation. We've done everything that is expected of us at a local government, and we are definitely on the right side of things here. So I'm very excited about the future, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who wishes to actually speak rather than ask a question? Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I know it's been incredible. There's just so many questions to ask. It raises. Everyone needs a cup of tea. We've had significant support from the community for Newland Park. It keeps coming up as we've heard tonight, as a most desirable and suitable location. The data gives us clear indications that this is the site, and I'm happy to support that we go ahead with a feasibility study and a concept design, which I think is really necessary for us to fully assess it, to determine, its suitability for a permanent facility. I'm also very pleased that the local elected members support this. Yes, I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to support this.
Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Look, I'm not sure where Councillor Carbone's coming from. I don't believe we have done all the work. In terms of a wheel park, I think there's a long way to go. Firstly, to see whether it's justified. The pump track's been a great success. I don't deny that, and it's my full support to have the pump track go around the city for the rest of its life. But I don't think it does justify the leap to a wheel park. I think it's akin probably to have a donut van put in a park for 3 months and then saying, well, okay, that justifies a McDonald's. It's a real leap of faith to say what we're currently putting around there won't actually, when it gravitates to something for all ages, have the same issues that people are concerned about. We had a person here tonight, a deputy, who came in and said, well, he's all in favour of a skate park, full in favour of a wheel park, it's all real good, but don't put it in Kensington Park, where I live. That's basically what he said. He did a good job of putting up other good reasons, and they might be right, it might be too small, I don't know. But I don't think yet this council has a proven case to drop a skate park, a wheel park, on any set of residents in the city. So I don't feel we should be doing a feasibility study on Newland Park or anywhere else.
Seeking anyone else who wishes to speak. We might need to get to you, Councillor Hedgie, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what Councillor Piggott said, I think is really, I'm reflecting on what you're saying, because I totally agree. A pump track, it's fantastic, and I think it's just fantastic, the vibe from the area. The children know it's coming to Newland, maybe. And, I can't wait for it to come to the next class. So there's going to, as this pump track thing goes on and on and on, it's like a circus, for the children and the youth in the community. They're just waiting for this pump track to turn up at their particular location. So I think it's fantastic the way that's evolved. And so, yes, it is quite different from a permanent facility. So we have two different things here we're dealing with. They're not the same. And, a concrete pump track facility is a very different offering, a different service. It will attract different age groups. What are we designing it for? The teenagers? Are we designing it for the young adults, the older adults? It's one concept design, I can get that, but I think it's going to end up being one concept design for a particular age group, and it will be the young adults probably, and the pump track would have to cater for all the littlies in other places. And I do think that it's located in Newland Park, but that's a pretty much back streets kind of location, and compared to the Churchill Road pump track, which I know, it's a great spot for dropping off your kids, go shopping, maybe sometimes stay, sometimes not. But yeah, this is a really interesting location, back streets, leafy green suburb. Yeah, I'm just wondering what we're going to be putting there. As Councillor Piggott said, you know, dropping it in from outer space. Bang. Thank you.
Councillor Cornish.
Councillor Lemon.
Sorry, Councillor Lemon.
Thanks. Interestingly enough, I agree entirely with what Councillor Piggott said, except his last little bit. While I agree entirely with it, I still think we do need to do a feasibility study, otherwise the next council will be having this very same debate, and the council after that, and the council after that. I think we have to look at it. It's like that fellow, that chappie that came in with his deputation. This is our job to find a place for a skate park. And when we started this business with the wheel park, which has been hugely successful, there was, I think, something of us that said, and in fact the resolution at the time said we will investigate a permanent skate park with our neighbouring councils, which has not come to fruition in a real sense for a variety of reasons. I think implicit in our promise back then was that we would look at this, and I think we do need to look at it. Personally, don't feel that we've got an appropriate open space big enough for a decent skate park in the Burnside area, but that shouldn't stop us from doing a feasibility study and actually looking at it and getting an answer. And I think doing it at Newland Park is probably a better idea, in the sense that it was the most successful skate park. We had deputations tonight looking to have a more permanent facility in the same area. So for me, the money spent on this is, I feel that we need to do it, because way back when we talked about the pump track in the first place, at some level we gave a promise that we were going to go down this path, and I think we need to take that promise to the end of that path, and that path may either grow into something bigger or it might peter out into nothing at all. But I believe that we need to go down the path. So I will support this, but I won't support the next one.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Quite surprised to hear those words from Councillor Lemon. I've almost fallen off my chair and don't know where to go. I pretty much echo everything you've just said, but I would like to say that whilst I knew quite assuredly in myself, in terms of that the pump track, that we were purchasing a piece of children's equipment, playground equipment that would go around the parks, it was not going to actually answer the call that the community was asking for an actual skate park, which is where you're getting at, in terms of we did give it in implied or implicit undertaking that we would actually go ahead and go down this track. I am very supportive of this. I do want to see a feasibility study and some of the scopes. I'm hoping that the concept might have different components that potentially you could break away. There might be, break in the middle where the parents can sit, and there might be Wi-Fi, and there might be plug-ins for your laptops, so they can be there with their coffees and doing some work while they've got their young kids on one side on a pump track and their older kids in an actual proper skate park on the other side. Maybe a barbecue nearby for family gatherings as well. So make it a real community atmosphere. Would be a great opportunity, but I'm not a designer, and I want to see what something like that might look like. So I am fully supportive of this motion to actually get an undertaking and see what we might be able to do in those spaces.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think the pump track has clearly demonstrated that if we build a skate park, it will be used by people. I would like to say I am not committed to building some Olympic-class facility for adult males. What's critical for me is that younger children need to be able to use this facility, because then parents will be there, and parental supervision is what's critical to the success of the pump track, I think, and will be to the success of a pump track. I don't want it to be populated solely by teenagers or adult males, which would be even worse. And I think the other thing is, I think the great success of Newland Park showed that you could lock it away at night, which really does remove antisocial behaviour, because that's when antisocial behaviour really starts, is after dark. We all know that. I mean, we've all been young people, even Henry, who's possibly still a young person. So I will support this motion, and I will support the next one, because I think we need to look at a facility in as many places as we possibly can.
I just want to say that it's really interesting to visit skate parks as a non-participant and observe the way that children and young adolescents and older adolescents share the space. I've been to a number of them. Strathalbyn was the last place I went, which is a very small skate park, but the way in which the children and young adults, both male, older boys, shared that space with little girls and were so cooperative and so encouraging and sharing their skills throughout the time there. It was absolutely staggering for me to see that, because you do have, unfortunately, there is a community perception that this is a place that's wild, and it's not. And all you've got to do is make sure you don't put lights on at night, and it's not, the problem is not, the Newland Park was very busy some evenings until daylight saving finished. And then as soon as there was no light anymore, kids went home, no problem. Councillor Hubel, are you willing to speak now?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was hanging on. I was captivated by everyone's contributions up to this. Look, I think it's great that we are hopefully heading in this direction. I think it's the next logical stage, and I think it's a step we should be taking. Look, I think giving the concept design that addition is a really good one. I was actually looking at amending the officer's recommendation myself, and Councillor Davis, you've done it for me, including the concept design. I think is really vital, because if we meaningfully really want to ask the community whether this is something they want, I think by and large a lot of the feedback we've been getting in opposition to wheel parks, I think demonstrates that a lot of people have not been to one and don't really know what it is that they're voting for. So I think it's absolutely vital that concept designs are done, that we can present something. I think I look back to our referendum in 1999. Henry, you would have been too young for that. And I genuinely feel that that vote was lost because people didn't know what they were voting yes to. So I'm really pleased that that's part of what we're doing. Look, I don't think that the pump track to wheel park jump is a huge leap of faith. I think we're talking about the same sort of activity. Perhaps it's a different clientele, different audience, but I think what we're talking about is wheel sport facilities. Pump track is one type of that. A skate park is another type of that. So look, I think we really need to get on with this, and I'm glad we've gone to this point. I hope this motion succeeds, and I really look forward to seeing this design and feasibility study.
Back to you, Councillor David. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hughes.
I just thought I'd get in on the action because everyone else was. Look, I think this is a good move to actually have something happening. I think Councillor Piggott has mentioned that we're dropping it on our residents, and I don't actually think we are. What we're doing is going away and looking at an option which we can then present so that people actually know what we're engaging them in, rather than just going, do you want a wheel park? Because if you say that to people, they say, nah, don't want a wheel park. So this would actually demonstrate, here's what we can offer the community. And I think what Councillor Cornish really touched on is it's not just about a facility for people to skate at, it's a facility that people can come and engage as a community. And I drove past Newland Park on multiple occasions, also attended there with my young children, but we would drive past on the weekends because I'm one of those people that cut through Lockwood Road. But there were people having birthday parties there. there were groups of kids enjoying themselves, and I know that people have mentioned tonight that, oh, it's a different group of people. Well, Sienna's not going to be 10 forever, right? So she'll progress from this pump track to something else. And if we don't have this facility for these people to progress to, what happens is people go to Hubby Court and they build their own jumps. I know that because I ride through Hubby Court and I've seen it. So if you don't provide the appropriate facility, something else will have to take its place. And whether that means that people go and do something inappropriate in a nearby space, or they go and use this purpose-built facility. And I don't think it needs to be the bee's knees. It doesn't need to be an Olympic-sized facility. But I think there's a real opportunity at Newland to maximise how we use that space. And I think if you look at that space within the community, there's certainly an opportunity there. I do appreciate that it is close to residents, but I think that's really what this next step is. It's looking at, is this feasible? And Councillor Henschke has mentioned, oh, this is a very different offering. And that's exactly why we need to do something like this, because at the end of the day, we have thousands of playgrounds in the city of Burnside. I've been to most of them with my children, but this is just about creating something different. It's unstructured play. It's also coordination and a different level of skills that you don't get in a playground. And Councillor Piggott's also mentioned about, got a lot of people saying, oh, don't put this in my area. And I think, you know what, we've seen that, because the last motion that came, Kensington Gardens, can't have that in Kensington Gardens Reserve. And we're going to get it across the city. So this is why we need to make a start and do it. And it might be that we don't end up at Newland Park. I actually personally think Langman Reserve would be a really good facility, a good location. So I'm really pleased that the pump track's going to move there, because I think if Newland doesn't get up, I actually think we should be looking at Langman. That's my personal view. There's certainly lots of opportunities, because that original report that came looking at location was really limited by main roads and bus routes. So I think looking at Newland doesn't meet all of those criteria, so we should do that, and that's why I'll be supporting this motion.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your debate. I think that, let me correct something. This is the very, very, very beginning of this process. We are very far from seeing it built. The second obvious hurdle is, first of all, you need to come up with an initial a feasibility study and something to go out in the community with. Then you need a detailed design. You've got community consultation. Then you have this council set perhaps approving it, then funding. I don't think that this will be done in this council term. But what we are doing here is developing an idea and progressing the idea of a permanent wheel park in the City of Burnside Council. I think Councillor Hughes said it perfectly, is Sienna, what is she going to do next? She can either go and play computer games, and by the way, there's lots of money in computer games, and she can go and do that. Or she can continue to ride down the back streets on a skateboard. But what I think, if you went there and you saw what actually happened at, say, Newland Reserve, and the community that was there that I didn't see anywhere else, and particularly parents like Rochelle, who were standing there observing it, they were gossiping, they were talking, they were enjoying it with their kids, they were looking at some silly councillor trying to make it around, and I just thought that the hive activity that was at Newland Reserve was just fantastic, and I would love to see more of that in the City of Burnside Council. Now, is it for adult men who are, is it for Tony Hawks? That's the whole point of what this next part is. That's why we need to do that next step, because it will answer those questions of who is the target demographic, what will it look like? Is it going to be the biggest half pipe in the Southern Hemisphere? Maybe. Maybe Chris has that ambition, but he's shaking his head no. But the reality is that that's what our residents kind of think about it. And so that's why I'd like to take that next step, to explore it and to give that concept to them, to make it more familiar. Now, my father hated skate parks. He thought that they were bogans who were dealing drugs all the time, and instead he wanted me to go and do scouts. What he didn't realise was that the same people who were at that skate park were also at my scout troop. And they were the exact same people.
Selling drugs?
Well, no. No, they weren't. And they were excellent people, and they were good people. And I think that if you went down to the pump track and you saw who was there, are they drug dealers? Is Sienna going to be growing up to be a drug dealer? That's the type of person who's going to be using it. And if you And I think that what we need to do is take that next step and explore that with our community and explore a particular location, so we can start having that conversation. Surely you must recognise that 250,000 laps is not dropping it out of space. It comes from huge community backing, it comes from extensive use, and we've seen its validity, we've seen its use by our community. And I'm not asking you to commit however many thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to building it today. I'm asking for a feasibility study and a pretty picture to understand what we're talking about. I seek your support.
Thank you. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'm suggesting that we might have a break now, even though we're only part way through a motion. You're happy to move, seconded by Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? But just before we do break, because it's a bit more of a natural, can I just take this opportunity to congratulate and wish Kelly all the best. She's getting married on Saturday. Just rather embarrassing now than after the next part of the break. Yeah. Okay, we have a quorum. I'm going to restart the meeting. And we are moving to the draft of the annual business plan. No. Oh, sorry, we've got the third one. Yes, we have. Fancy for getting that. Okay, so it's Councillor Davis.
Dragging on, yeah. I won't talk nearly as long. I think the concept behind this is to consider an alternative point to Newland and a reference point. I moved it in two motions because I felt that there would be different issues surrounding Newland Reserve, or Newland Park and Kensington Park Reserve. And I felt that it would be better to individually discuss the merits of each of those locations. It would see another commitment of $15,000 to a feasibility study and a concept design at Kensington Park, and I understand that we did have a deputation tonight, but of course, as Councillor Dawes said, he'd also received some reservations or an email from a resident as well. So look, I'd like to suggest the motion to you that we approve a feasibility study and concept design for Kensington Park in addition to Newland.
Do I seek a seconder? Councillor Carbone, do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll speak now, Your Worship.
Okay.
I won't say much, but I'm happy to support this motion. And all I'll say is from what I've been hearing tonight about Kensington Park, and all I can say is if you are having any fears, bear in mind that there is no perfect location. We've been around this enough times, long enough, for us to all know that it doesn't exist. And you cannot simply give in to the negativity of every site, because every site will have its pros and every site will have its cons. And in this site, yes, okay, it is probably a little small, but it has a lot of pros as well, so you can't just focus on one side and not the other. Now, speaking of the smallness, okay, yes, it might sound small on paper, but Councillor Henschke, you go to Churchill Road, okay, that wheel park would actually fit if you picked it up and put it down in Kensington Park. And that is plenty big, plenty big. So don't buy into the argument that, oh, it's too small and not good enough, no one will go there, and so forth. Okay, the one at Churchill Road was large. It had a lot of children. When I went there over the weekend, I was there for about an hour. You had a good cross-section of young children, small children, big children, and so forth. And yes, a few adults. So that's all I'll say. Kensington Park, we need a cross-reference, okay, if anything, for Newland Park. And also, one last thing before I go is with the lap counter, we've heard a number of times tonight that it's not a fair reference to Newland Park, because Newland Park had a hard surface and Kensington Park had a soft surface. So it's not a like for like, not an apples for apples comparison. It's a bit unfair. So if Kensington Park was a hard surface, its lap counter would be a lot higher as well. So please give Kensington Park a go. It has a lot of pros. Don't give in to the cons. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Oh, Councillor Dawes, yes, sorry, you were next.
I'd like to ask a question first for administration. Justin, who was here earlier in a deputation, mentioned the art piece in Kensington Park. Can I ask administration as to whether that can be moved or not?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Kent.
Through your worship, anything is possible, absolutely. The feasibility study, if council progresses to proceed with that, will make that determination. It will determine whether or not the existing artwork and mounds can be incorporated into a potential design, or whether it would need to be removed, replaced or upgraded as part of a potential design as well. In short, we believe there's enough space there to facilitate some form of wheel park, but the feasibility study will flesh that out further.
Can I now speak?
Now you speak.
Yeah. I do agree with Councillor Davis. We do need a reference point, a comparison point with Newland. And the reason I say that is because Newland had a hard stand area around it. It was the most successful because of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Langman Reserve, and I think Councillor Hughes mentioned this, if Langman Reserve was in our first 4 last year, that may have been the most successful. I wouldn't be surprised because it was on tennis court, or it will be on tennis courts. I am also wary that there are existing users at both locations. So because Newland has them and Kensington Park has them, I wouldn't mind the feasibility study looking at both of those venues and seeing whether it is feasible to have the wheel park at both of those locations. I am aware of the NIMBY argument. I've received an email against Kensington Park, I think we all did. I've received an email tonight against Erindale and a suggestion there are other Erindale non-supporters around. So what I would love to see as a councillor for the area where Newland is involved is that we do have a comparison, and therefore we can make a decision based on what is the best site, rather than deciding now this is the best site based on a fallacy that it was the most successful, because it may not have been the most successful if we had other venues with tennis courts like happened at Newland. I'm not saying against Newland, I just need to be assured that there is another possibility there. And there may be a third one later on. That will come out through the feasibility study, and also, as you know, I'm very keen on having the concept design done too. Thank you.
I'm seeking anyone else who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit of two minds with this one. Although I do want to see the comparison between the two. I don't sort of buy into the whole Newland was more popular than Kensington because of the hard service component, because the TUS here at the Civic Centre was on a car park. That was the hard service that it was built on. Sure, we had the COVID, hit and it got closed down a little bit, but I'm a little staggered by the numbers even for that, given this is a popular location, there's car parking available. A lot of people come to this venue for the library, or if it's, school, ethnic and community school on the weekends and after school. To Cumon, we see them, all the time, all these kids here. I was absolutely staggered about that number, and the deputations tonight, they raised the safety issues next to Main Road, and I really think that the main roads, the parade and here Portrush Road is probably a big determining factor of kids feeling safe in these places and it not being a community park. So although I do have that fear in terms of it, I think I might support this motion because I do want to see that comparison with the feasibility between the two venues. I think that would be important, and it also might help even with the concept plans, that there might be components of the plan that is designed at Kensington Park that actually might be okay at the other park, and we might be able to pick and choose components. So although I'm not sold on the location, I'm happy to continue down with the feasibility at this stage, I think, and the concept design, just to actually get that additional information.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Worship. I've supported the need for a feasibility study for us to get a picture of what we're talking about, something to hang our hat on for a skate park, wheel park. I've got no idea what the extent is, what the modern design is, what our community would support or our economy would support, our budget. So I'm very keen to see that we get that concept and the principles together, and that's why I supported in this in Newland Park, because we then can look at what we need to be looking at and funding and developing further and talking to our community about. While there's been a lot of debate about the wheel park, the pump track being used to differentiate the spaces and give us an indication of what could be a feasible space for a skate park, I think we've left out a whole lot of other areas that haven't been considered for feasibility studies. And I mean, there's places like Tasman Park. Why hasn't that been considered for a feasibility study? Langman Reserve. There's a whole lot of large open spaces in Burnside which would qualify for a feasibility study. It so happened that someone landed on the idea of Kensington Park Reserve, and so there was a pump track located there for a trial. A very small one, which is why the figures are so different. It was on the grass, which is all very, very dry, and hopefully will be rehabilitated and replanted because it's a bit of a desert there as a result. But I'd rather see us invest 15, 20k in a feasibility study, so we've got a concept design, and we can take it from there as to whether we then develop it further in Newland Park or some other site around Burnside. So we've heard said Kensington Park Oval is a very heavily subscribed oval. The gentleman, Justin, who came to talk to us tonight, wasn't making it up. It's leased to Pembroke School, it's heavily utilised by their sporting facilities, their cricket club. For anyone who's visited it, it has huge practice nets designed to support their very successful cricket club. It has community tennis courts. It has a really big, quite big children's playground, which Sarah and I proudly helped design and is very successful. There's running tracks, and it's a rural community facility, but it's very heavily subscribed. So, as well, there's no community support. I can tell you the community are not inclined to support they just don't support the idea of a skate park in their park, and they will start to activate accordingly. So I can't support this tonight. I'd rather see us have a concept and then take it from there. Thank you.
Next person is Councillor Jones.
I'm in favour of this motion, and I think it's important that we look at two, and that's on the old concept of an heir and a spare. Because if we go with just one, and we look at the feasibility study and the concept design and say, nah, don't like this, then we're back to square one, and we are, another year behind? I mean, Councillor Hughes mentioned about how slow things were in local government. Do we really want to take that risk? Kensington Park Oval is 60,000 square metres in size. Are we seriously saying, and again I'm echoing what Councillor Hughes may have said about somewhere else, are we seriously saying that we can't put a facility in less than 1% of the space of this 60,000 square metre park? I mean, I really think people are gilding the lily somewhat. Newland Park Reserve is smaller, and a big chunk of it is taken up by the baseball club, which is totally, we will not be able to use that. So I think there's some anyway. While I struggle with that a thesaurus with me, but anyway, so I think it'd be a good idea to go with two. I think also if we go with one, the danger is that people will say we are forcing a decision on the community, and they'll get their backs up, and we won't get a rational discussion about things. And people in the local area will say, you're pushing this on us, they're pushing it on us. Jenny and Mike will get kicked back, and I think that will, we'll run the risk of you're forcing on this. Let's keep the options open so we can have a rational discussion in the community.
Councillor Piggott.
Look, rest assured you'll get kicked back from 1 or 2 or 7 if you do that. And I guess that's my point. I mean, you know how I feel about this. We have decided to do one, so be it. Why would we do 2? I think from a quirk of nature, actually, Kensington Park came in second. of the 4 that we had, and that's highly arguable. So equally, why aren't we doing one on Miller Reserve? And then here tonight we're thinking, well, Langman Reserve is probably a really good place for this as well. So why aren't we doing that one as well? I mean, there is a limit to doing it. I do feel that Newland Reserve, if we need to have one, seems to come up fairly high based on what we know already and what I know about Newland Reserve as well. I don't think the baseball club will be affected at all by this, I suspect. There's a lot of Newland Reserve before you get anywhere near it. So I do feel that if it doesn't make sense to me actually to go down a full concept design of what it would look like and a feasibility of actually a second, and quite a long way back second of the 3 really. The Civic Centre was never an option. 3 that we did on the pump track. If we're going to say a year of the pump track shows that we need one and shows, gives us information as to where it should be, then that strikes me that it's Newland Reserve. Let's make it work and let's not spend money on anything else. Let's just go with Newland Reserve and make it work. You'll get backlash from whatever site you go to, and it's shown up here. Councillor Dawes wants Kensington Park in there to take a bit of the heat off because he's Newland Reserve ward councillor. Councillor Davey, she's keen that Kensington Park's not in there. And I'd be exactly the same. I guess I was, because we made that argument previously. So, if you're confident in what you're saying, you've done a year's trial, you need one, and you've got a really good place for it. Let's do that one and not muck around with one of the other 4 or 5 that might work.
Councillor Hughes.
I actually semi-agree with Councillor Piggott in that don't get too excited. I do think that the locations that we chose for that trial were perhaps not the optimal solutions of where we should put a pump track. It really, if you think back to that night, I remember sitting here, we had the community, there were banners, there were signs, people were outraged that we were going to put it in Tasman Park. And what we did was we thought, oh God, how can we make this so we can get something without annoying the majority of people in the community? And at the end of the day, it's worked. We've had a trial, but I do think, as Councillor Dawes rightly mentioned, if we had Langman Reserve in that first lot, that would probably be up here as well. So I think rather than just throwing Kenzie Park in because it came second, we should do this. But there is nothing actually stopping us in the meantime coming up, get this concept happening. But, someone can come up with another motion and actually ask staff to do another review of the sites with fresh eyes. Now we know what we've learned from this pump track trial, because I actually think Kensington Gardens is the best location for it in the city of Burnside, right? But that would actually require a rescission motion. And that doesn't mean I've still got a year and a half sitting in this hot seat. There is still time, Harvey. There is still time, Councillor Jones. So I think we need to just focus our energy, get together this concept, understand what the key elements of a site would be. And I think that comes down to investing a little bit of money up front and doing that, because I think some of the criteria that we set for selecting some of these sites, in retrospect, they actually may not be the criteria that we look at for a permanent pump track. And one of them was being on a main road, and we heard tonight, actually having something on a main road wasn't that great. And a lot of the reasons that we knocked out some of these other things was due to transport. So I think we should focus our energy on one. We're not throwing it on the community, but I think it's then going away and saying, well, you know what? If it comes, staff could come back in 2 months' time and tell us, Newland, it's not feasible, right? And we're back in the drawing board. But why would we go and spend money on 2 sites and they come back and say, actually, not that great, either of them? So I think we should start somewhere, make sure things are progressing, but this will still need people like Rochelle in our community to keep the momentum going, because even if you have 2 sites, I still don't think you'll necessarily get the solution. So I think as a group, as an elected body, we need to be seriously thinking about what's the best site, and that could well be Kensington Gardens Reserve. So I think we, need to rethink the priorities of where we're going to send it.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor.
Yes, I agree with the previous 2 speakers. I think that for a start, using the premise that we're going to do comparisons doesn't work for me, because what you're looking at is two vastly different sites in terms of how the pump track was used. One of them is a grass site, the other was tennis courts. And the report actually says that one of the reasons that Newland Park was so successful was because it was a hard surface, both underneath the pump track and next to it. So I think, you know, Kensington Park might have had the second most, might have been the second most popular, but what does that really mean? Could it have been because it was the time of the year? Could it have been that parking was easier? Could it have been whatever? That I don't think that the reason that it was the second most popular and a long way away from where the first was, I don't think is necessarily a reason to use it as a feasibility study. I think we can do the feasibility study for Penfold and look at what it brings up, as Sarah said quite rightly. Look at the elements that come up, look at what sorts of things might be used in a more permanent skate park, and see what happens with Newland Park. And if it is resoundingly from the community, no, you're not going to put it here, then we are back to the drawing board. But at least we've got a start, at least we've got a feasibility plan, at least we've got some sort of concept designs and drawings and whatnot. And I think that's fine. I don't think we need to do two just because we're having an heir and a spare. I don't think that's the way to go here. I think that's $15,000 that's wasted because you're not comparing like with like, and you're not even choosing like for like from the start. So I'm not going to agree with this.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Worship. Just imagine if this gets up and we get a feasibility study into two locations and it turns out they're both feasible. We can have two locations. And I find that a really exciting prospect. Because, well, one for little, one for big. Exactly. Thank you, Your Worship. Look, all the talk I'm hearing is we're debating locations. We're not talking about whether this is a good idea or not. We know that it's a good idea, I believe. And the ins and outs, and Kensington Park Reserve, it must feel so conflicted. You know, some people are saying, it was only so popular because it was a small track. And some people are saying, well, it would have been more popular if it was on concrete. And I think it must feel very, you know, ostracised and gone. Well, I mean, of course we can't compare like for like because every location is different. And that's why I think it's a real shame that we weren't able to repeat Newland Park in this second pump track trial, because it would have given us more perspective on this, but that's the way the chamber went. I think the perfect is the enemy of good. This is not ideal. Yes, there are probably other sites. And I think if we went around this table, we would all have a different perspective and view of which one is best. Some would say Kensington Gardens, some would say Mellor Reserve, some would say the car park. Actually, I don't think anyone would say that. It got us over the line last year, I stand by it. I think we really need to look at, we need to be taking action to move forward with a good community-supported idea. And I feel that feasibility study in a second location is a good thing for us to do. Like Barry gave us the wisdom, anything is possible. I might put that on a poster. We need to cast a net. We need to find out what's possible and what's available, and it'll give us options in the future.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, two questions actually. What is the likely cost of a skate park, facility? I mean, when we were first looking at it, it was $2 million or something like that. I know it depends on the size. And the other one is, in terms of the feasibility study, at what stage is there a statistically valid community engagement undertaken at the site? Thanks.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer to Mr. Cant, and I'll come back to me if I need to.
Through your worship, the first question was likely cost of a permanent wheel park facility. Is that correct? Yeah. It's a sliding scale depending on the size, complexity, and what's included. Obviously, I believe when we first presented it to council, we provided estimates of anywhere ranging from 500,000 to 1.5, based on other examples elsewhere. But until we delve into that concept and get a good understanding of what council is looking to do, it's difficult to provide you with an accurate cost. Second one was about when does community engagement kick in? Is that correct? We would recommend that council determine a location or locations and concepts on that, and then we would recommend a detailed communication engagement strategy for council to consider, and then proceed at that stage.
Can I just add a couple of little thoughts that need to be considered in this? And one of them is every physical site is different, and therefore the potential concept design is also potentially different because of the lay of the land, the slope of the land, where there are trees that you can work around, or whether trees need to be removed, etc., etc. So every site is going to be different in terms of how you design around the site, the space, etc. The other thing that we need to consider, and the young people actually mentioned it tonight, when children get to the point where they need to be independent, they need to be able to get to a site on their own. And my son's experience, watching my son, was public transport. The only way he could get from one skate park or a place to skate to another one was to either ride down Mount Osmond Road on his skateboard or alternative, so he could get a public bus to get to another skate park. And I think that's something, that's one of the reasons I'm just hearing Langman Reserve, I'm thinking, how the hell do you get to Langman Reserve without parents driving you? So I just want you to consider those two things. I'm not trying to convince you anyway and all, except those two things are really, really critical. Site dictates design. Question, Councillor Davey?
Question. I'm still not clear about, does a feasibility study involve engagement with the local community, the local and the wider community, or not?
Yep. Through Madam Mayor, no, the feasibility study will not undertake community consultation. As Mr. Can alluded to earlier, it will involve some targeted discussions with user groups and particularly interested parties. To my mind, the step before community consultation is probably a council resolution giving us permission to go out with the resultant concept and understanding before we take that step.
Right, Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. Question for the administration, just to clarify, the pump track trial was targeted at a certain demographic, younger age group. That's clear from all the results and the popularity. So when we talked about the 500,000 to option to 1.5 million, are we talking about a permanent pump track style skate park for that? That would be mimicking the same thing but in a permanent fashion?
Through Madam Mayor, the proposal that's before us this evening is for a wheel park or a skate park in the old language, which would cater for a broader range of ages or demographic than the pump track that we have been the supportable example. So this is designed to be a more inclusive installation to cater for a broader age range.
And another question, if I may, thank you. There are a range of alternatives with skate parks and pump tracks, we're learning tonight. The indoor skate parks that are popping up around the world and even in this state, and the and the business opportunities for private indoor skate parks, the serious, skate park that provides all year round, under weatherproof skate park experience. Is that a strategic alternative that has been tossed around? Because we're just focused, I can see what we're trying to do in the city of Burnside is look for a parkland in an outdoor style skate park, but could we have a combination of things where we have the pump track story for the younger demographic that moves around, and then look for see if there are any business opportunities out there with the private enterprise?
Through Madam Mayor, so you're talking about the private sector solving the issue for us? My response to that is, if it was a commercial opportunity, it would have already been taken up. I don't believe we would have commercial operators seeking to undertake that in the city of Burnside. I can envisage it happening closer into the city or where there are large industrial spaces, because to construct a building of that magnitude would be terribly expensive as a greenfield site. So I don't believe it would be a pertinent way for us to proceed.
I don't see any more hands up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak, or shall I go back to Councillor Davis? All right, Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much again for this, and I appreciate your patience. I think this is quite a large decision, and what we need to do tonight, really what we are doing, is taking a small step forward in terms of exploring a particular concept design and then taking that to our residents. Look, I understand that there are obviously reservations about proceeding down Kensington Park Reserve in terms of it being near a main road, but I think that you could quite easily put in a fence to prevent kids from going onto the road. I also think that having the more ideas, and whilst it might cost an extra $15,000 to do it, having more ideas about what could be available in both locations would be helpful. I think the biggest concern is really surrounding how we, it may be the case that really two communities have come out in terms of this, and I think that what we should be doing though is promoting the positive sides of this. And so I think that this particular advocating for Kensington Park is a good way to juxtapose the two positions, and I do think that Newland will come back as a better spot, but I think also we'll get information from that as well in terms of being able to compare that to a similar location or a similar kind of potential for it to be, and so we can actually, sorry, it's getting late, have an ability to compare and contrast that for our residents. So look, I hope you support this motion tonight to do a second concept design and feasibility study.
Those in favour? Those against? Division's been called. Those who were in favour, please stand. Councillor Davis, Councillor Carbone, Councillor Dawes, Councillor Jones, Councillor Hubel. Those against, Councillor Henschke, Cornish, Hughes, Davey, Piggott and Lemon. The motion was lost.
Thank you. Yeah, quite nice to discuss something that doesn't have the same passion involved.
If we don't have this settled by 10:25, I will have to be asking for time, additional time, because I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, this must be decided tonight.
Fair enough.
Getting on with it.
No, she's talking to me, I think, actually. Yeah. And look, I will. And look, I haven't got much to say. I'm endorsing the officer's recommendation. It does three things. One is endorse the annual business plan for release for public consultation, and that is a result of the significant work that went into it, and it's got, you know, all the things we asked for: a small operating surplus, 0% rate increase for the second year. It's got probably the highest, I don't know this, but it must be near, the highest level of capital expenditure in a year, using, you know, in large chunks other people's money. It's consistent with our asset management plan, and it's actually a nice, colourful document that I'm sure that the community will love. It also, the long-term financial plan, which has gone through the scrutiny of the audit committee. That also, I think, is an improvement on previous ones in that it does reflect only an estimate. We can't know what capital projects are going to be done in the next 10 years, but it does have an element in there as opposed to just sort of putting in the ones that we do know, which is invariably a lot less than what it will be. And then the third thing is the extension of the cash advance debenture. Not really my territory. However, in the report you will have read the need for it, the audit committee's, its consistency with Treasury policy and audit committee's endorsement of that. And so that's what this motion does. I think the budget is an enormous amount of work by administration, and I do congratulate them how they do have to gather all the facts within the organisation and then try and meld it to what we want it to look like. Is quite a feat. That's what they've done here, and I seek your support to the motion.
Seek seconder. Councillor Cornish.
If no one else,
Speak now.
I'll reserve.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If we had a 1.9% increase next financial year, the debt level would hardly increase over the next 10 years, according to the long-term financial plan. So I'm referring to page 103 of attachment D of our separate finance motion. So it's not in your agenda papers as such. Now, if we have a 0% increase, as what Councillor Pickett is suggesting, next financial year, the debt level increases by $9 million over those 10 years to a record $30 million. Now, one reason is because if we only have a 0% increase this next financial year, we receive about $800,000 less in rates. So what's the reason for the $9 million increase in debt? And I, of course, went to Karishma, who's always a font of knowledge. And the main reason is due to the fact that we start from a lower base rate as regards setting our rates. And in fact, it hasn't moved for 2 years if we do go for 0% next financial year, which affects the total rates received over ensuing years. So my question will come down to as to whether I support this or not is, will our residents be happy with a short-term gain in 21-22 by having no rate rise, or will our residents be unhappy with a long-term pain as our debt level reaches its highest level of $30 million in 10 years' time? So that's the conundrum I'm under at the moment. Now, those answers to those questions will obviously help me determine my position on a rates rise after we go through our community consultation process. But I am worried by the increase in the long-term financial plan for our debt level. And I'm not a man to have a huge amount of debt. So I wouldn't mind passing that to Councillor Pickett when he responds at the end of this debate. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, look, I agree with Councillor Dawes. I voted that we should investigate a 0% rate increase, and I think it was a laudable aim. However, the thought of being $30 million in debt fills me with absolute horror, and who knows what interest rates are going to be in 10 years' time. When my wife bought her first house, interest rates were 18%. Can you imagine paying 18% interest on $30 million debt? I'm not keen on the idea, and I look at the alternative. If we went with the original officer's recommendation of 1.9%, my rates bill next year would go up by $30. Now, maybe you're all richer than me and your rate rise would be higher, but I reckon I could live with a $30 rate increase to save an increase in debt over 10 years of $9 million, frankly, and I suspect that most people could, and I understand that we will come back to the teabag lady in our deliberations, but the council does have hardship provisions for people who cannot pay that extra $30. You can defer your rates and we'll take it from your estate when you sell your house. So that's my key concern. And frankly, to go out to consultation, I'd much rather go back with a 1.9%.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Dawes and Councillor Jones. I don't support a rates freeze at this time, which is essentially what it is. While I acknowledge and I thank the staff for all of the work that they've done in terms of the modelling and the preparatory work and the responses to all of our questions, I acknowledge the community concerns about the impacts of the pandemic and all of the influences this is having on our economy and lifestyles. We are still projecting a 2.4% increase in the cost of council business for 21-22 financial year. And I actually support the proposal at attachment D on page 103, which is scenario 3, which provides for a 1.9% rate increase. This will allow a healthier operating surplus of 1.78 million, which covers our subsidiaries, a reduced and manageable level of debt, 20.8 million at the 30th of June 2022, and a debt balance in 10 years at the end of June 2031 of 21.3 million. I think we've been very financially prudent council, and our rating policy history shows this. But our operating surplus can be impacted by a whole range of things, and I think we're cutting it too fine with a zero rate increase. So I won't go into any more detail other than to say that the basics are we're heading into an election cycle next year. If we are looking at freezing our rates, surely it is better to have a rates freeze or a zero rate increase in the next budget cycle and make sure and provide the funds to allow for, but have a 1.9% rate rise this year and then perhaps look at the situation next year and have a zero rate increase. They're just my thoughts for the budget tonight.
Councillor Davis.
I say this, I suppose, regularly, but I think if you look at what the rhetoric that Tony Abbott used when he was criticising Julia Gillard about looking at local government and the way that you look at, local government or a government and the way that they raise and do their economics and their budgeting is very, very different than a household. You shouldn't look at local government as you would a household. The other thing is, even if you do that, if you look at the amount of debt that you're getting as in terms of your income, $30 million is a percentage of your income. If we're earning $42 million in rates a year, what does that equate to on a household budget? How much debt are we actually talking about here? We're talking about $60,000 for a household budget. So if you want to put it into those terms, you're not crazy. And actually what we're doing is we're investing in large amounts of infrastructure. And that infrastructure is a huge benefit. And any household, if you have a look at their debt to income ratio, is actually a lot further beyond to what it is there. So if you're going to use that analogy and think about council as a household, then there's actually nothing currently wrong with our position. This is not a rates freeze, and I wouldn't be voting for a rates freeze. I vote against a rates freeze. What I vote for is that we raise rates in accordance with the local government price index. which is the increased cost of which council does its business. Now, Adelaide University every year and every quarter does a summary of the LGPI for local councils and publish on their website, and they publish it there. The September quarter was a reduction of 0.3%, and this last quarter is 0%. And if you have a look at an increase of 0.7 before that and negative, it actually works out that LGPI is a 0% increase. Now, if LGPI went up by 3%, I'd be voting for a 3% increase tonight, and I'm not voting of this because of COVID. I think we've come out of that recovery. CBA share price, as a simple example, is nearly as high as it's ever been following a COVID environment. And I think, to my mind, if you have a look at the unemployment rate and the way that that's happening, a current state of our economy, then in my view, our population can afford it. But what I want to look at and what I would suggest we adopt as a rationale for thinking about these things is pegging our rate increases to LGPI. What that means is essentially CPI for councils. That is a rational way to think about it. Now, to the extent that we go outside of it, if you also have a look at our long-term financial plan and you look at the income that we'll be receiving in 2020 versus the income we'll be receiving in 2030, naturally the value of our house prices goes up, naturally inflation goes up. And I think that the notion that because interest rates are at the lowest possible percentage than they ever should be, we should be taxing people more, doesn't really fly. What we should be looking at is a system of how to think about this, and I understand it's very difficult, but what I would suggest you do is peg it to LGPI, and LGPI is 0%. John Howard, the way that he ran surpluses, and he was the only government in Australia's history that ran surpluses, what they actually did was grow their base. And that will happen naturally in the City of Burnside Council, where you go from an income of 42 to 52 over 10 years. And you can have a look at that on page 97. So I support this motion.
Councillor Lemon.
I just want to talk about debt levels. I'm a bit disturbed about what I've heard from the ultra-conservatives on my left. I'm put in mind of my parents, my dad in particular, who has actually been dead for over 30 years, who used to say, you've got to save your money and then you go and buy your thing. You always have to save up before you buy what you need. We don't live in those times anymore. We shouldn't be worried about debt in that very old-fashioned way anymore. We are currently in a situation where you've got, in my lifetime, this is the cheapest money ever available for people for borrowing. The cheapest. It's actually probably worth going and borrowing money and playing the stock market if you're good at it, because you'd actually make a profit. That's the world that we're living in right now. So in terms of being worried about our debt levels, no, I don't think we should be. And in terms of a debt level of 30 million, which may or may not be true in 10 years' time or whenever it is, that's our income stream is higher than that annually, but our asset base is like something like 600 million. What's our asset base? It's quite high, even higher again. So I think we need some perspective on that. The other thing that I actually want to say, and that's all I'll say about this, is I have an ideological opposition to running a large surplus. It bothered me when John Howard was Prime Minister enormously, hugely, because what he was doing was he was taking my money, the income tax that I was paying, and he was saving it up for a rainy day. And I didn't give him my permission to do that. And our ratepayers haven't given us their permission to take their rates and squirrel them away. $1.78 million in a surplus is too much. If we could break even every year, and I know it's not possible to do that exactly, I'd be happy with that. But to squirrel away $1.78 million of ratepayers' money just in case is not on. It's wrong. I'm totally opposed to it. So I'm happy to actually support this budget, although 0%, yes, we still need that. We still need to give some relief to people post, in a COVID world. but you can't sustain that over the long term, I have to say. But I'm not happy about a surplus, and I'm not happy about the attitude to debt.
Okay, I need someone to move for an extension of time. It's 10:25, and we are not going to finish this in the next 5 minutes. I have at least 2 more people who wish to speak. So, pardon? Yes.
I'm moving extension until we complete this matter.
It's got to be 11 o'clock.
But less than 11 o'clock.
Yeah. We finish this particular debate, and when this debate is over, then we finish the meeting. We don't continue on. Right, you're seconding that? Okay. So, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay.
Thank you, Worship. Should
sit in.
Are you happy for me just to direct traffic? Thank you.
Please.
All right. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Acting Presiding Member. I'll try and be, I do support the motion as it currently stands. 10 years is a long time, and that can be clawed back. You know, certainly the LGPI is a valid reason to keep it at 0. The other, you know, there is an opportunity not to, given that we did it last year, but my big rationale is the revaluation that's going to hit us, and to be able to go back to every single one of our residents that are going to be hit massively by this reevaluation program of all of their properties, to say we didn't increase the rates 1 cent. It's all about the reevaluation that's been done on your property. I think is going to be a very strong message. The 10 years out, you know, we have no idea what projects we're going to be doing or adding to over the next 10 years. So I'm not worried about debt levels in 10 years' time, because that's 2 or 3, you know, council terms away. So, you know, we have to have a long-term financial plan, and I get that. And it's great to have that information, but it does not scare me one little bit, and I'm happy to go with 0. Thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Briefly, we've always prepared our business plans or long-term financial plans with the principle of the intergenerational equity, and now we're changing that, and I think that's a fundamental principle that the administration has told us they do, and that's best practice, and I think that's very, very important. So we are sustainable, and we have enough money for investment in quality infrastructure, and maintain our asset management, and ensure that we don't have a backlog of infrastructure to maintain. So I don't support this motion.
Has anyone else to wish to speak? Councillor Hughes, are you asking a
No,
question?
I would just like to ask a question of the administration, if they could just clarify that we're not changing our approach to intergenerational funding of capital.
Through Madam Mayor, I can confirm that we are not changing our approach.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? Right, then I shall go back to Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Yeah, look, if I could just pick up some points, I suppose. Look, 10 years is a long time. I actually don't discount the fact that it's actually a good thing to look at in regard to the impact of it. I do think it is a bit of a stretch, though, that we are, you know, not putting the rates up by 800 grand effectively on that argument. And all things being equal, perhaps, yes, that's $9 million in 10 years' time, but all things are not equal. And they've got 10 years of decisions in terms of what they spend, both what they spend in capital, or what we do for the next year, and when future councils, what they spend in capital, what they spend in operating costs, actually. There's no There's no rule that the operating costs have to stay as high as they are for the next 10 years. All those things are going to affect where that debt ends up. And I just draw your attention to also page 31, if I could, just on that point. And if you look at the operating surpluses for the last 3 years, 2.2 million in 18-19, 1.5 million in 19-20, and this year 2.85 as the forecast. And I don't know, I've been in this chair for a while, I don't remember ever actually budgeting to a surplus to that size. So a budget is not an exact landing of anything in truth. It is a direction. And the direction that Xero does this year is actually not different to where we've been before, is we've always hung our hat very much on LGPI. And usually it's more than CPI, and in the first few years I was here, we used to have to crash out that argument that, why is it going up more than CPI? Well, it's going up more because LGPI, which is what affects our costs, that's what we need to do. Now it's 0, and suddenly we want to put 1.9% on. That's what we're changing, not the intergenerational equality argument. It's actually pulling away from LGPI. So, look, I think there is a lot to do in 10 years, there's no question. I think having a second Xero increase, it's not actually about relief for COVID so much. It's actually about, we are running a responsible and pretty prudent, financially prudent council, and the benefits of that go back to the ratepayer, because we don't actually need to raise them beyond 0%. So again, I do congratulate the administration on the work, and I do ask for your support of this to go out to consultation. Let's see what the community says. You get another crack at this, but I really do think it's a good thing to do. Thanks.
Right, those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried.
So we are formally moved that all the remaining business we haven't addressed tonight will be at the beginning of the council meeting next week, next council meeting, including all the motions on notice. Moving that all remaining business, including the MONs, be adjourned to the next
She's trying to move them to the beginning of the next agenda. I'm just trying to find out whether that's legitimate or not. No, that's what I understood as well.
Item 9, adjourn business, right?
Sorry?
Item 9 of the agenda, adjourn business.
Yes.
But we passed Henry's motion already.
Yes, I know that. We're talking about the motions on notice that are still to come.
The motion we passed was, once we passed that motion...
We were going to, meeting ends, exactly, I know. Yeah, meeting's over. And I said, I declare the meeting over at 10:29.
And the adjourn...
No.
So we go back to... Gee, what if... Gee. What can we move? Next meeting. Okay. Well, there's 3 of them.